Era a mesma merda. Era a mesma merda dos superbikes, quando o Nacional queriam os superbikes, tinha o Nacional.
There is one more race to go in this year's Michelin Le Mans Cup, and it takes place here in Portugal on the Algarve in a beautiful location. The Algarve International Circuit, qualifying taking place yesterday, and unusually actually for a lot of the races this year, it is a Sunday event. That's the way of things, has been the way of things for the last few seasons. So bright and early Sunday morning here at the International Circuit, the Algarve International Circuit, for 2 hours of racing to decide still both championships as well in LMP3 and in GT3. Thank you for joining myself, Johnny Palmer, and Graham Goodwin, who, amongst other things, is the editor of dailysportscar.com. Good morning, Graham.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Johnny.
We're scraping sleep from our eyes this morning.
I absolutely am, and staggeringly, this is not the first race of the morning either. We've already had the F4 boys out. It's a packed programme here with lots of support races with the European Le Mans Series, of course, to come this afternoon. Join us on the live stream for that one, 4 hours of action. And then this 2-hour race here for the Michelin Le Mans Cup. And there's some great action ahead here, I'm absolutely certain of it.
So 18 LMP3 cars all now assembling on the grid, joined by 8 GT3 machines. The GT3 category, very interesting. It's essentially a duel between Kessel Racing and the number 8 car, and Lusick Racing with the number 71. But honours so far this weekend going to Lusick with a dominant pole position for Fabien Laverne, who, by my screen is going to be starting the car and handing it over at roughly half distance. Each driver has to do a minimum of 55 minutes from pit out, or indeed from the race start, to pit in or the race end. And sometimes, of course, a race will go slightly beyond the 2-hour marker, and sometimes teams can use that strategically as well to build in a couple of extra minutes for drive times.
But what we've seen in the later races this season, Johnny, is that those two cars at the top of the point standings are not going to have it all their own way, because there are stronger cars emerging as the season moves on. In particular, Beechstein, AMR's Aston Martin, as the team, Andrew Howard and Ross Gunn, unlock the code of that new car for themselves. They've been getting stronger and stronger in the latter part of the season. I wonder whether or not they'll have something to say about the points gaps. Grey Market Racing here, the number 20 car. That is Crader and Alex Mortimer. Had a chat with them on the way in this morning. They're going to be back for more next year, which is great to hear. A new Duquesne for them next year.
Starting from 12th position in this race with one of many Normas. The Norma was dominant-ish yesterday. The front row are both M30s, but the best Ligier as far up as 3rd position. We'll chat a little bit more about that car when we get to it on the grid. But the 71 Michelmack Fabian Laverne car, qualified by Laverne because he's the bronze. And remember, in this category of racing, this championship, it is the bronze that must qualify to give that certain driver far more responsibility, arguably, than other championships. So pole position, amazingly, giving that car an overall starting position of 11th. So what's that? Another 8 cars behind, 8 LMP3s behind the leading GT3 car, and the other GT3s in one solid bank at the back.
Well, I should say, by the way, we normally say, well, what matter for qualifying in an endurance race, when in that instance he's given himself an 8-car blocker, if you like, ahead of the rest of the GT3 field. James Winslow, I think it is, isn't it? On the right? Yes, it is.
Yes. A good spot. By the way, it would have been 7 cars, but post the session yesterday, the number 30 CD Sport car was put to the back of the LMP3 grid. So despite a good qualifying session for, now who would have been qualifying that car? Jacques Wolf, who is down to actually qualify, or down to start the car as well. He will have to start from 19th position rather than, I think, 10th place that he'd originally qualified in.
The Motorsport 98 car, that is Eric de Donker, I'm guessing, starting the Ligier, the number 98. Bright orange and dark grey colours on that car, very distinctive.
Going to be starting from 9th position and 3rd of the Ligiers. All the LMP3s powered by the same Nissan power plant, V8, 5 litre. But that engine is going to be replaced over the winter period, again by another Nissan power plant.
5.6 litres.
And much more developed, obviously, because the engine that is going to be in use for the final time today has been used since 2015.
It has indeed. This is the AT Racing team's car. Austrian flagged, the Talcanitzer Junior and Senior.
So 8th place for that car. We're steadily working our way towards the sharp end for LMP3. Time as well to tell you what's happening in each of the championships. So Giacomo Puccini and Sergio Pianazzola currently on 105 points each for Kessel Racing in their number 8 car. Meanwhile, Nicolas Mella, who did qualifying for Racing Experience yesterday, sitting on the grid 7th. David Hauser, the other driver that will take over somewhere between 55 and 65 minutes. And then in 6th position, the car that was qualified by Tony Wells yesterday.
And Tony's set to start the car. That is young Colin Noble sitting on the wheel cover at the rear of the car, not suited up. There's Tony. And I think he knows he's got a fight in his hands here. But good qualifying from Tony yesterday. Pulled it out the bag midway through that session. Quick fire qualifying, always difficult, particularly for the gentleman drivers, to get the car switched on.
Next one up on the grid is Adrian Schiller, who shares with the multiple French hill climb champion Nicolas Schatz. And Nicolas very, very rapid indeed once he gets his hands on the 39 car. But Schiller provides a great sort of concrete base and often hands that car over in a very decent position indeed.
The Iron Ladies there, pair of them at least, actually by the Kessel Racing car at the rear of the grid. up to fourth on the grid. DKR Engineering's first of the two cars, or rather second of the two cars on the grid. Wolfgang Triller, new name for the team and for the championship. The distinctive green and black livery of this car, the one that's had far less luck, I think it's fair to say, this season.
Yeah. So no Marcello Marattiotto and Marco Cencetti this time, instead replaced by Wolfgang Triller, who has experience of GT3s within the 24H series and the ADAC GTs, Blancpain as well. A 51-year-old German driver being joined by Kenneth Heyer, who again is from Germany, and son of the great Hans Heyer, who is still regularly at racetracks supporting his son. May even be here this weekend, actually. Kenneth Heyer sharing that car and will be second into it.
Second on the grid. Missed out one of them here. The 25 car, London Racing. Mikey Benham will start the car. Mike, that's qualified the car yesterday.
I did think about that.
Leading the championship now.
I better concentrate on what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yes, it's very, very tight, of course, at the top of the championship. But in LMP3, London Racing on 91 points. And they have a lead that has decreased overnight because of a pole position going to the number 3 car, which is the car we look at now. Francois Kerman, who did the qualifying, congratulations to him, takes him to 85 points and therefore within 6 now of Lannon Racing. And the championship fight is basically between those two cars. It's perfectly poised because they both sit on the front row. So both in Normas. Mikey Benham to start the number 25 car. And after a difficult Spa-Francorchamps, I think it's fair to say, with one or two unusual errors from Benham, he's hopefully managed to wipe that now away from his CV and can start to push on and get some consistent laps in this stint. So the grid at the bottom of the screen, as I mentioned, Kerman and Benham on the front row. Rob Weldon, a most impressive performance yesterday for RLRM Sport, will start from 3rd position. Wolfgang Triller comes next. Then it's Adrian Schiller for Graf alongside Tony Wells, the T-sider for Nielsen Racing, British driver with British squad. And in the 7th and 8th places, racing experience of Luxembourg, Nicolas Mellat with Alexander Talkanitsa Senior to start the AT racing car. On the 5th row, it'll be Motorsport 98 of Belgium with Belgian driver Eric de Donker. John Corbett starts the Graf number 9 car from 10th. And then the first of the GT3s. Incredible qualifying again from Fabien Leverne. He's already an ELMS champion. Can he be a GT3 champion in the Michelin Le Mans Cup? Starts alongside Mark Crader for Grain Market. John Showerman and Rod Hodes for Cool Racing and United Autosports, respectively, on the 7th row. And then in 15th position, it is Jim Maguire for United Autosports and Maurice Smith, again for the Swiss outfit, Cool Racing, number 74. Spirit of Race, also of Switzerland, Claudio Sedanovic to start that car alongside Alain Costa for Kio Racing, with interesting plans for that squad heading into 2020. CD Sport put to the back of the LMP3 grid because of a post-race infringement, post-session infringement. Ebby Motors, regulars in this championship. Great qualifying from Alessandro Baccani, but it's Venerossi who starts the car. Dexter Muller still in with a chance of finishing 2nd in the championship in GT3. SPS Automotive Performance, that's a Mercedes alongside the Ferrari from Spirit of Race of Christoph Ulrich. Then the Beechstein AMR Aston Martin, that's the Vantage AMR of Andrew Howard. Ross Gunn later on. Claudio Sedanovic for Kessel Racing starts from 24th position. And at the back, 2 Ferraris, 25th and 26th, both from the Swiss squad, Kessel Racing, with John Hartshorn and Sergio Pianezzola. So Pianezzola with a drama, I'm thinking, pretty late on as well, to be that far back.
He's been pushed from the pole in GT, hasn't he, to the back of the grid. I'm looking down to see if I can find a steward's decision. There is not one posted yet. So with apologies, I can't bring that to you. But we'll see whether or not we can bring details of that. Bear with us.
Not sure what... Well, you've got me thinking now. Did he take pole yesterday?
Yes, he did.
Okay. Shows how short your memory is, doesn't it? Across a busy weekend. So it was a dominant performance from Fabien Leverne. We're giving him all the credit, but he didn't actually manage to do the business yesterday. Here's a reminder of the championship. 105 points compared to Fabien Leverne now on 96. And this is... I don't think including qualifying. No, it's not. So the points have changed since then, and therefore Fabien Leverne, Mikkel Mack moved to 97 points now because of that pole position. Andrew Howard, Ross Gunn in with a chance of finishing third, but look at the fight behind. Christoph Ulrich, Maurizio Mediani, Dexter Muller and Yannick Mettler all within touching distance of that third place championship finish.
Correct myself, it was Fabien Laverne that was pole. I'm just waiting to find out why, though, the 8 car that was second on the grid is now stone cold last.
I thought my brain was properly going out the window there, but yeah, I had a memory of Fabien Laverne being very dominant, but they've qualified second in the 8 car, and we were set to have those 2 cars on the grid first and second. Well, Sergio Pianizzola's going to have to do it the hard way from the very back of the grid.
Isn't he?
And I don't know, something about Portimão, it always has...
GT
Portimão. And Portimão, yeah.
It's
a great mixture for spectators to be involved in either one of those teams. Horrible, frankly. Right,
8 angry dogs in a sack.
Indeed so. So, and the Drivers' Championship in LMP3, I don't think those points are quite right, because 91 points for Duncan Tappy and Mikey Benham versus Kerman and Hur for in second place. So I had the gap at 7 points coming into this event. And Graham will now, no doubt, do a little bit of research to confirm that. Yep. Let's mention about Alessandro Baccani, because he was very quick in qualifying yesterday. The 88 car, most impressive, but it'll be his teammate Paolo Venerossi to do the opening stint, with Baccani to come next. So Venerossi at EB Motors is also a bronze. So that team has the luxury of actually electing who does qualifying. And they have chopped and changed a little bit through the course of the year.
They have. Just to confirm the points, they are the correct points. That's London Racing. Maybe predict what we might see at the end of it. London Racing on 91. DKR Engineering's number 3 car, 84. Nielsen Racing's number 2 on 61. And they're the 3 that really have dominated proceedings at the front end of the grid this season. 3-minute board is out, Johnny.
It is. And yeah, time ebbing away, but this is just a moment of reflection perhaps for the drivers that are left pretty lonely on the grid now, maybe with just one team member each to ensure that the car starts, and then even those mechanics will head away to the safe side of the pit wall, and the driver will be entirely on their own.
The answer, by the way, on the brake car is it was contaminated fuel. They used the mandatory fuel, but there was contamination in the tank from another fuel present. So that, I'm afraid, is a no-no. That's a big hit for them. Let's wait and see just exactly what they can do about repairing the damage.
Well, Fabien Laverne didn't have it all his own way at Spa, involved in a mid-pack schmozzle, shall we say, at the first right-hander. La Source for Spa-Francorchamps, and it's so easy to get involved in a dice that's not of your making there. It's also pretty tricky for the first few corners at Portimão, with the right-hander approached at high speed. You're heading downhill as well. Can't actually see the first corner from that angle because it's significantly lower than the main straight, which is absolutely level, by the way. You head downhill through turn 1, a little kink at turn 2, and then a much tighter right-hander at turn 4. The reason is that they're numbered like that is because there is a chicane that is in use at times. So we don't, in this configuration, actually have a turn 2 on the 4.6 rather kilometre circuit here at Portimão. Just 2 metres shorter than the circuit at Barcelona that was in use earlier on in the year for the round prior to Silverstone. But of course, Michelin Le Mans Cup don't visit Silverstone. They go to Le Mans instead. Silverstone busy enough with the ELMS and the WEC on the same weekend. But the beauty of the Michelin Le Mans Cup and the road to Le Mans is that all of these drivers get 2 races at the great 8.5-mile circuit, Circuit de la Sarthe.
Grid will be totally cleared now. Engine start, 1 minute to go before the leading car pulls away, and we get on to 1 formation lap before the start of the final race of the 2019 Michelin Le Mans Cup. Race wins, podiums, and indeed championships, and in one case, a Le Mans entry to be decided.
In GT3, and Lucid have a really strong chance here of actually getting 2 automatic entries very early on in the piece, because we're already looking ahead to next June, and who may be invited there courtesy of taking part in another championship. There are 3 places up for grabs in ELMS. One of them has already been secured by the Swiss Ferrari squad. Right, final few seconds ticking by. Set for a 9 AM start locally, but the green flag lap starts just a few minutes before that. In fact, it begins now. Just the one formation lap confirmed by Eduardo Freitas a little bit earlier on, our race director once again, who is from Portugal, so this very much his home event as well, and a special day for Eduardo.
Happy birthday, Eduardo Freitas. Yep. How old is he? 10, 9, 8? Older than that.
Probably, yes. But he does love his countdowns.
He does.
I'm sure we will hear a few of those through the course of the day, whether it be in this race or indeed later on in the 4 hours of Portimão for the ELMS. LMP3's then heading through that tricky sequence of right-hand corners. This is a great part of the circuit, down towards turn 6. It's the end of sector 1 and the start of a up and down, left and right, tricky sector 2. If you can be quick through the middle sector, then you're certainly on course for a very good lap. And the rotunda provides a terrific spectators point as well. For a lot of meetings, a lot of race weekends, it's actually open access there for spectators. And you can go to the open floor, which overlooks turn 6.
Indeed. One quick change, by the way, to report from our observations yesterday is the reports that rain might be around seem to have gone.
All day?
I think so. And,
okay.
And actually, good news for some of the teams who are staying on for the next 2 or 3 days is that appears to be going away for the early part of next week as well.
Very good. Okay, well, certainly testing tomorrow, much better in drier, consistent conditions. I did think that maybe if we had a short, sharp shower in the ELMS, that would provide an extra bit of spice at the end of the championship.
Indeed, and we'll be getting the opportunity on our way to the airport to see the cars that are going to replace this breed of LMP3s. 3 of them will be here testing over the next 2 or 3 days with a variety of current and prospective customers. We have the new Ligier, the new Adesse Evo, and the Duquesne that will replace the Norma here, whilst the Ginetta, the 4th car, is testing back in the UK. Because obviously there's much better weather in the UK.
I'm not so sure about that. Certainly Friday was a washout across much of the British Isles.
It won't stop them.
No.
They're from Yorkshire.
Cars heading up to it. This is the really interesting part of the circuit. Up onto the little ledge at 11 and 12, then back down the other side through 13, a sweeping left-hander, climbing up to 14, 15 and 16, then is a descent towards this, well, sort of tightening right-hander. It's very fast, is turn 16. And crucial to a good speed then down the main straight, but certainly the scene of an incident. Just asked Alexander Guignot, who had a huge spin yesterday in qualifying in ELMS. So important to get turn 16 right, very rewarding when you do, but disastrous when it goes wrong. We've had cars end up in that pit lane entry, crashing into the Armco barrier in recent years. There is the grid, perfectly assembled. Working its way then down towards the timing line. The red lights are still on at the moment. Lucid Racing's Ferrari is in line. Let's see whether he can get a good getaway. Fabien Leverne at the wheel. But it is a fight in the championship in LMP3 between Francois Kerman in the orange and black car, the white and red for Michael Benham, and now the red lights are extinguished. The field fan out to 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe even 7 abreast. And here comes in the green and black car, Rob Weldon trying to go 2 abreast for second position. He's going to run a little bit wide as a result of that and then lose the place that he immediately gained. But on the movement there, no, that's Weldon on the inside, I beg your pardon. And the green and black car is struggling a touch with Wolfgang Triller running wide at the first corner.
Well, you were right in that there was a car looking for second. You were wrong. It was at that point it was Rob Weldon, but now it is, and he's up to second place. Fantastic start from the bronze-ranked debutant here in the Michelin Le Mans Cup. Very experienced indeed. Well, big trouble behind. That's one of the United cars, I think, off.
And
23.
Maybe racing experience involved. It looked like the red, black and gold of the Luxembourgish team. We'll try and check on that as to the progress of the 11 car of Nicolas Mellard. There's more clashing as well for Wolfgang Triller, and that was at turn 9 in the green and black car. And now heading through turn 10, that very fast left-hander up towards 11 and 12, and unsurprisingly, yellow flag still flying at turn 6. I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, big damage for Lusic Racing, and this is huge for the championship. We said that Fabien Laverne had qualified the car really well, but that rear left damage might even bring his race to an end already. Oh dear, oh dear. We need to see that one again, don't we? Was that involving the two LMP3 cars? Because if that was a lunge up the inside, taking out the GT car, that is absolutely terrible luck for Lusic Racing. Fantastic qualifying performance, but put them in the middle of the LMP3 pack, and could that have been their undoing? Maybe, just maybe, the 8 crew with Pianezzola at the wheel are rubbing their hands thinking, thank goodness we were put to the back of the grid and weren't involved in that skirmish in the number 8 car. Astonishingly, the 8 car leads. It's gone from the back to the front, whilst the 71 car has gone from the front to the back. So was Pianezzola able to take advantage of all that carnage? The Racing Experience car now trying to look to gain some of the spaces it lost on that opening lap. So I reckon it was Nicolas Mellin who was briefly delayed, nowhere near as much though as the United Autosports car of Rob Hodes, ending up in the gravel at turn 6, although is running again, shown as completing the first lap. Well, the in-car from Higgs, as he comes into the pit lane, it's certainly a puncture.
Yeah, it might damage. Not be any worse than that, though.
He could, I'm not saying get away with this, because he clearly hasn't, but it could just be trailing bodywork. They've got to be careful. There's nothing that's going to foul a replacement wheel. There's significant bodywork damage to the rear of that car, though.
But they're going to strap it up and send it out. They have to, unless there's
no choice.
Internal damage. Yep. But the engine in a Ferrari sits well clear of the rear bumper. It's a mid-engine machine. They're going to check what's been done here in terms of damage. There's clearly been contact to the rear of the Ferrari. There goes Rod Hodes. It is the Racing Experience car, and then the Ferrari gets tagged by, I think, one of the cool racing machines.
Cars. It's the one with the white nose. So I think he maybe a little brush. He certainly pulled up as a result of the two cars spinning across him. But you're right, Johnny, it was the cool racing car that made the major impact to the rear of that car, and there is big damage there. They're going to send it, and they're going to hope, but that's damage to the rear diffuser as well. That is not going to be, and he's going to lose the lead lap here as well.
Well, it may not be the lead lap from GT3s, so it's going to be very, very close, though. And can they now pull something on the strategy to say that they can, well, still, Fabien Laverne has to do 55 minutes. That's the crucial thing. And there is a minimum timed pit stop to do as well. They may have been advised to do that during that particular stop, but 1 minute and 3 seconds is too fast for me to be the minimum stop. So they haven't even got that out of the way to be able to do their driver change later on in the race as quick as they could. Yeah, but I think there'll be a degree of, well, 1, panic, and 2, stay on that lead lap. Yes. Without a shadow of a doubt. He's emerged in front of the AT Racing car. That is 8th overall, so he's lost a lap to everybody down to 8th position at the moment. And the key here is how well is that car handling. And now we really get to see how good Fabien Laverne is. We've been raving about him all season, not only in the Michelin Le Mans Cup, but also in the ELMS. That's a very sorry-looking Ferrari F488 now. But if Fabien Laverne can drive around the problems and the ill handling of it, and then get it handed over to Mikkel Mack, you never know what is going to befall Sergio Pianezzola and his teammate Piccini, because, you know, something like that can happen easily on the first lap, but we can have incidents during the middle portion of a race as well. It's not all done yet.
Either way, the number 8 car got to finish.
Exactly.
Because otherwise every single place grabbed back by the 71 car is going to be points dragged back in that points gap. Currently sits at 9?
8 now because of the pole position, that was taken by Laverne yesterday. So 8 points. But at the moment, the 8 car on course for 25 of them, and 71 very much not. Anyway, as far as the battle in LMP3 is concerned, Rob Weldon, mightily impressive here. So much experience from radicals around Europe in recent years. Never raced, though, in the Michelin Le Mans Cup, and made his impression in qualifying yesterday when he was toying with a pole position, despite the fact that his team, RLRM Sport, still run the Ligier, which down the straights can struggle versus the Norma. Battling, meanwhile, in GT3 as the
Kessel Racing Ferrari of Claudio Schiavone, number 60, overtakes John Hotsaw.
That's right, for position. And the gap, by the way, on track between the almost lapped Fabian Laverne and the race leader in GT is about 7-8 seconds. Now, were I Pinazzola, I don't think I'd be pushing that issue at this point.
No, it's there, isn't it? A victory in the race, and now there's going to be a drive-through penalty for car 30 for a jump start. So it never rains, but it pours for CD Sport. Put to the back of the LMP3s because of a post-session infringement yesterday, and now having to visit the pit lane for a drive-through penalty.
Jack Wolf will therefore be the first LMP3 car down pit lane. Great little battle here, by the way, for fourth position between the 39 Graf car, Adrian Schiller, Tony Wells and Wolfgang Triller. So Schiller, Wells and Triller. There's a rhyme in there somewhere.
I think you've done it. So the DKR Engineering machine, I should say, Luxembourg team, and they have so far been the only championship winners in the history of LMP3 in the Michelin Le Mans Cup. We have had LMP3s as early as 2016 join the championship at the Road to Le Mans, but it was a GT3 contest in its initial year, and then LMP3 was brought in as an additional class. And in 2017 and 2018, DKR Engineering were victorious, and at the moment they're in a great position to make it 3 in a row.
Bob Weldon, by the way, is not letting Kerman get away here. He's just been the fastest lap of the race, a 1:42.236. That's just a couple of hundredths quicker than the race leader. Gap is under 1.5 seconds, consistently so. Further progress meanwhile by Schiavone, who's gone ahead of Paolo Renarossi in the EB Motors car and up into 5th position in class. Next target for him is going to be Andrew Howard, who's got a pick with one of the LMP3 cars ahead. Battling trio here of Normas. This 4th position. DKR, RLR, Lannon, 1, 2, 3. Then it's this 3, and up the inside, and that was a hit to the side of Tony Wells from the number 5 DKR car. There was a gap, but not a normal size gap. He's found that to his cost. And was there any damage there for Tony Wells as well? The 5 car gets back on, loses positions.
That's almost a classic moment at turn 15. We had a similar one in qualifying yesterday as well, involving Matthias Besch.
It kind of tempts you in, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But that's the racing line.
Yeah, and the apex is pretty late, actually. And when you think a driver you're about to overtake has seen you, they're concentrated on turning in at turn 15. And unless you're fully alongside, it ain't your corner.
It isn't. It's, I can make it. No.
And it often goes wrong there. And so it proves, big wiggle there for the 2nd place car of Rob Weldon. All of a sudden, the traction from the front, it looked like, gave the car a big old wiggle.
Kia Racing's 43 car goes by the GT leader. That is for 14th position overall. Kia Racing plans to be back next year in the 30 car makes its drive-through in the ELMS in LMP2 car. They've bought one of the ex-high class racing Dalaras, and they have plans to join the ELMS grid next year in an astonishing LMP2 grid that continues to be a rolling story for the European Le Mans Series. I think we're looking at something around the same kind of total next year, with teams adding cars. At least one new team we know of, quite possibly others.
Yeah, very healthy time indeed in the European Le Mans Series. Just look at 18 cars in the LMP3 entry this weekend, 13 in LMP3, and a further 8 GTE cars, 39 cars in ELMS. We've got 26 to feast our eyes upon in the Michelin Le Mans Cup, and still 2 championships to be decided. GT3 seems to be only going one way at this stage. I didn't think I'd be saying that just 5 minutes into this race, but carnage at turn 6, resulting in Fabien Laverne unable to be not involved. He was tagged from the rear by one of the Cool Racing cars, and Lucich Racing, Fabien's team, have turned his Ferrari round pretty quickly, but he's still circulating in 8th place and virtually a full lap down from Sergio Pianazzola.
The battle for 11th position, Nico Malat coming back up the inside of Mark Grader, the Grain Market car, and Mark cedes that position for now. But, hanging on in there. Meanwhile, at the front of the race, Kerman looks for the moment, broken that toe, that bit of a wiggly moment for Rob Weldon. Got a little bit of damage down, lost him a second, so it's over 2.5 seconds the gap, and that's been forced a little by Kerman with another fastest lap of the race, 1:42.177 now. Much quicker than anybody else out there. Wolfgang Triller looks to repair some of the damage done from his moment just a couple of laps ago, closing in on the AT Racing Ligier. This is now for 7th position.
But I think in both cases, Wolfgang Triller and Rob Weldon, you know, getting used to a very new car to each of these drivers. The behaviour of it, still getting used to as well. But he's wringing the neck,
isn't he,
of this DKR engineering car is Wolfgang Triller. Probably very frustrated with the mistake he made, trying to pass Tony Wells. And now finds himself then back down in 8th position when he was actually fighting Tony for 5th spot. But does appear to have the measure on the car ahead, which is Alexander Talkanitsa, as Graham's mentioned. Ligier versus Norma, therefore, rattling their way through turn 16 and well over the curbs.
Looking racy, number 5 car. Is he going to go look up the inside here? I think he is. Is he going to make that? Usually the quicker car on the straight line, and does so. Corner given, quarter given, at this point at least. It's still very hot indeed at the front of the field. The top 3 cars are pulling away from that battling trio behind.
I don't think there's any doubt about Wolfgang Triller's pace, and clearly he just needs the consistency and the finesse to drive one of these cars, which only comes with a few more races. Alexander Talkanitsa Senior, though, trying to stay on the coattails of Triller for as long as possible. In the background is the Lucid Racing Ferrari. However, that Ferrari not there in position. It is a lap down on these cars, effectively. Still in 8th place and just about on the lead lap in GT3. But remember, when the checkered flag comes out, it falls to the LMP3 leader. So if you're a lap down, you'll be locked into that place. Adrian Schiller and Tony Wells, meanwhile. This is Tony, I think, making time on Schiller for 4th place.
Yeah, definitely pulling back towards, and they've broken the toe of the number 9 car from Corbett.
Mikey Benham, by the way, not able to keep pace with the top 2, but he is only 5 seconds away from Rob Weldon, and I think we'll be pretty happy with 3rd place at the moment. That's a good spot to hand the car over to teammate Duncan Tappy. Just needs to be a little bit cautious, not allowing Francois Kerman to disappear fully up the road. He's 7 seconds adrift now of Kerman.
And now matching the lap times within a 10th. So Mikey Benham looking for and finding the consistency that deserted him somewhat at Spa. And getting that, well, for him, lucky break, with 4th place becoming a win with the exclusion of the top 3 cars at Spa. Tony Wells now showing the graph man that he's there. I might come this way, I might go that way, but I'm coming. Keeping an eye, by the way, on adventures, continuing adventures in GT. Fabien Verne is rapidly catching in terms of time. The cars ahead of him. He's just under a minute back from John Hartshorn.
Yeah, so as we enjoy this battle for 4th and 5th places between Adrian Schiller and Tony Wells, together with the scrapping in GT3, let's catch up now with Giacomo Piccini from Kessel Racing, who's chatting to Charlie George.
Well, Giacomo, the start of that race just goes to show how unpredictable this racing is. You started from dead last following being put to the back for that fuel infringement, and now you're leading the GT3 pack.
Yeah, incredible. Sergio did an amazing start. I'm sorry for Lavergne because he had a contact which, let's say, was difficult to predict. And now we are leading the race. We have a good advantage. Sergio is doing an amazing pace, so we just try to keep the position and go to the end like this.
Hopes must be high now for that championship title. You've just got to stay out of trouble.
Yeah, that's the plan for the rest of the race, for sure. That's finger crossed.
Good luck.
have already had massive success in this particular championship, getting to Le Mans last year as a result of a win in 2018, a dominant victory as well. They finished with 138 points compared to their nearest rivals, Christoph Ulrich and Maurizio Mediani, on 83. So it's not as dominant this season and has come down to the wire, but at the moment it's going their way.
And indeed used that to launch a two-car effort in the European Le Mans Series. You saw one of those two cars in the background with Charlie talking to Giacomo just a moment ago. The other car, the 83 car, of course, the Iron Dames, the three female drivers that have put up such a fantastic fight throughout this season, cannot be ignored in that very impressive GTE field. And more stories to come from there for sure. We've got a yellow flag out at the moment, turn 13, not sure why yet. Keep an eye on that one.
13 is the fast left-hander between the high-rise section at 11 and 12. You plunge downhill almost as if it's off the edge of a cliff. Some camera angles just reveal the edge of the track and no more. So not this bit through the left-hander, but the next very fast left-hander is affected by yellows, and in fact they've now been withdrawn. So maybe just a spin and continue for a car, and we don't need to make that more severe into anything like a full course yellow.
I think that could have been Claudio Schiavone.
Okay.
He's had a very slow third sector.
Yep, so that would fit in car number
60.
Which is the
second Kessel car's drop
car.
positions there. Tony Wells, by the way, still looking for a way past the Graf car. Of course, looking to do what he can to give Colin Noble a shot at making up ground in the latter part of this race.
Through 16 then goes the Motorsport 98 car, and across the line with the number 74 Cool Racing machine driven by Maurice Smith. Two Cool Racing cars occupying similar sections of asphalt currently, with John Schauerman almost involved in that battle as well. So John Schauerman running the risk of being caught here, although Eric de Doncker runs a touch wide coming out of turn 1.
Battle for 10th between these three cars. Meanwhile, by the way, Mikey Benham beginning to make ground on Rob Weldon for second place. That gap now down to 3.2 seconds. See how that one actually pans out over the next lap or so. But Mikey Benham appears to be starting to just edge into. There's a pass for position. Two Cool Racing cars, 4 and 74, now together. But can Eric de Doncker gets it back? One of the cars ran wide. It was the 4 that ran wide.
So John Schauerman's lost 2 places, and Eric de Doncker loses 1. The big winner there was Maurice Smith. And Maurice now up to 10th as a result of that little shuffle around.
Well, Eric de Doncker ended up in the same position, lost 1, gained 1.
Yeah, good point. Yes, he did. But the Cool Racing cars have entirely turned around. Nearly 20 minutes gone, and Maurice Smith then. This is turn 13. It was affected a couple of laps ago then by what we think was an incident for Claudio Schiavone. Don't think another car was involved though at the time. Now, the Graf car has a little bit of damage on the front left corner, I reckon, with a dive plane out of position. Or is that just an optical illusion? No, we might be all right as far as Adrian Schiller's car is concerned. And Tony Wells still keeping him honest, waiting for a mistake to emerge. Nothing forthcoming just yet. John Corbett's a bit further down the road in the second of the Graf cars. There is a spin, though, for 7th placed Wolfgang Triller again. And that happened, I think, at turn 4.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yes.
Yeah, Poe going up and down the order. And it's the experience that tells us he's found himself, guess what, back on the AT racing car again, which has a bit of a lock-up coming into the turn. Tony Wells still pushing hard.
Can't find a way by Adrian Schiller just yet. Schiller has proven to be a real consistent driver, I think, aided by the advice that can be offered to him at times from co-driver Nicolas Schatz. And Schiller getting faster and faster, but as is Tony Wells. And the experience gained in these cars after a couple of full seasons now, telling in that they are regularly top 5 runners. Still Francois Kerman on lap 12, leading now by 3 seconds. The gap, though, Weldon to Benham has come down, and it's now 2.7 seconds, second to third. So Benham just turning the wick up a little bit.
Absolutely, and looking like he's set to be with Weldon within a couple of laps here. It is gap is coming down a little more quickly of late. 1:43.3 last time around for Rob Weldon, 1:42.6 for Mike Benham. More experience beginning to count in these LMP3 cars. Does take a while, whatever the experience levels are, does take a while to just find the consistency that these cars require. 8 car, meanwhile, continues to lead the way in GT, has a substantial gap over the second place car, which is, by the way, the SPS Automotive Performance AMG. Dexter Miller is something like 15 seconds ahead and 4 positions ahead, with a trio of LMP3 cars behind. And as for the progress for Luzic Racing, now 26 seconds behind Claudio Schiavone. So he's going to begin to start to make up positions in something like about 5 laps.
Yeah, and that's just about in time, because stint length's running to 55 minutes from the race start, so you can change your driver from that moment on. But of course, if you started with a silver or a gold, then it might be advisable to keep that driver at the wheel for as long as possible. I think pretty much the whole field started with their bronze driver. EB Motors here with 2 bronzes, so they had a decision to make. Paolo Venerossi currently at the wheel of the EB Motors Porsche, and that is 5th in GT3. Behind Andrew Howard's Beech Dean Aston Martin. Christoph Ulrich still in with the chance of finishing 3rd. And certainly running ahead of Andrew Howard on the road currently will help that fact, because they came to this meeting, did Andrew Howard, Ross Gunn, and then Christoph Ulrich and Maurizio Mediani, separated by just 3 points. Here comes Tony Wells from a long, long way back to pull a move on Adrian Schiller. They're side by side, and he was just in the right position there to gently edge Adrian Schiller across onto the curb. That was fully Tony Wells' corner for me, and yeah, ensured that it stuck. So that will give the Teessider 4th position. Absolutely. A cool head there from Tony Wells. Knew exactly what he wanted to do with that car and did it. And when the Graf man looked like he might just have a bit of a nibble back, Tony just made sure that he was fully aware where the Nielsen car was, took the position. Another position taken. This time it's the GT leader going ahead of the number 4 Cool Racing LMP3 car. This is a 12th position now. Just into a different phase now of this race, aren't we? With some of those long-term battles over the last 20 minutes beginning to be sorted out. What's going to be the next one? This time around, Rob Weldon, by the way, edges back a little. Here we go, we're going to see it again. All the way across the pit wall from Tony Wells. Takes advantage of the fact the Graf car's going to go past the GT car. No way to the apex at all for the 39 car, and you're quite right, he's got the corner, just allows the Nielsen car to drift a little wider, and well done to the Graf man for seeing that that was the case and that the corner was lost. Alex Mortimer there, keeping a weather eye on the progress of the number 20 car he shares with Mark Crader. Race leader still Francois Kerman after a great performance in qualifying yesterday. Another pole position then to add to the DKR Engineering tally. That was a 4th pole of the year. And remember, a good result on the road at Spa, but his car disqualified along with the number 2 Nielsen car and the 39 for a safety infringement relating to bolts in the crash box structure. So all 3, the top 3 from the Spa-Francorchamps result, disqualified late on Saturday night, and Lannon Racing given the win. We're in a situation here, by the way, where pole position might make the difference for the championship here. Yes. Lannon Racing 7 points back. It's a 7-point difference, of course, between, 6 points back now. 6 points ahead, rather, now. With 7 points the difference after qualifying between 1st and 2nd. And Benham is in a position to put Duncan Tappy into the car with an opportunity to win this race. Volkart is in the pits, and that's early. So, John Schaumann in to potentially hand over to Nico Ronde, but he hasn't done his 55 minutes yet, so they won't be looking to do the driver change if indeed John Schaumann is happy to continue. Remember, he was battling with Eric de Donker and Maurice Smith not too long ago, But obviously John not too happy about something, as running rather wide there, Claudio Schiavone. That might have been to allow these LMP3 cars through, and I think again deliberately braking a little bit early to certainly allow Alexander Taukanitsa by.
Well, as they came to the bottom of the hill, at the top of the hill was Fabien Laverne, and that is now the gap. 2 corners. Because that will be for position, albeit only for 7th position at this stage. But, that's certainly a gap still worth calling, because if there are any dramas for the championship and race leader in GT, Fabien Laverne will need to pick up those points.
Into turns 1 and 3, because we don't use the chicane. Turn 2 in this configuration goes the number 90 car then, still sitting there in 7th place, and putting a lap on the John Hartshorn Ferrari, number 50.
The big wiggle there for Triller in his again pursuit of Taukanitsa.
Down the hill to turn 16, past the rotunda once more, and again pretty consistent from Alexander Taukanitsa, despite the presence of Wolfgang Triller. Hasn't had Wolfgang there all the time, of course, only latterly since Triller dropped back a few places. Kerman still leading the way, 15 laps done, as a Norma versus Ligier battle is unfolding between his car and Rob Weldon for RLRM Sport. Good middle sector that for John Corbett in 6th place, his best of the race. What about Mikey Benham? Having closed the gap to about 2.5 seconds to Rob Weldon, it's just edging further out again.
Bloke's wearing your shirt there, Johnny.
Heading out of turn 14 is this Ligier versus Norma battle again. Category leaders you can see in the top left-hand portion of the screen. 3 being DKR, 8 being Kessel Racing, and nobody quite expected Sergio Pianazzola to make it to the sharp end of GT3 so quickly and with ease, it would appear. But Lucix Racing being out of the fight, at least briefly, certainly helped in that regard. Fabien Laverne's times, 1:45.1 last time around. That is okay.
Yeah, he's doing fine. He's at or around the lead pace from the Kessel car. His problem, of course, is he's a better part of a lap down. But he's got to hope now, I'm afraid, that Kessel does not have a trouble-free race, and all he can now do is to make up positions. He's about to do that, by the way, because he is now under 3 seconds back from Claudio Schiavone, and he is 6 seconds quicker per lap at the moment. So it will be Schiavone, then Hartshorn, then Venerossi are the targets. In terms of time, Schiavone is close ahead. Hartshorn probably, oh, there was one of the, was that a Graf car? It was the 9 car.
So yes, a Graf car, and John Corbett, having already said that he was improving his times, a very good middle sector recently. On the next lap, he's made an error.
He's
can only assume at turn 8. Not sure whether there was another car involved, but yeah, the really difficult thing is the rear wheels are deep in the stones now, and that car's not going to go anywhere.
Now, is that going to be a full course yellow, or is that going to be a safety car? If it's a safety car, then that does add a little bit of spice here.
True, yeah. I would edge towards a full course yellow.
Depends on the sighting there, I guess.
Yes.
And there is no man on the planet that knows the sighting points on this circuit better than the newly 57 years old.
Full course yellow.
Full course yellow it is.
Yeah, I think that car can be recovered from behind, essentially. So if there's a snatch vehicle that can get to the gravel track and tow the car backwards, then marshals don't have to be on the dangerous side of it.
Yeah, as soon as I
9,
okay.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, full course yellow, full course yellow.
There's a reason why Eduardo keeps interrupting you, because he doesn't want everyone to hear you say to everyone that how old he is today.
Yeah,
I know you've said it, but he was deliberately interrupting.
Okay, let's have a quick look what occurred here. That was a spin for Mike Benham as well.
So Benham must have dropped considerably back from where he was versus Rob Weldon. 3 seconds was the gap prior to the full course yellow. It's going to be significantly larger than that.
As they came down to full course yellow, I think it was, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
It was.
So the gap is much larger now. And as he was chiselling away at the gap to Rob Weldon and indeed Francois Kerman, all that hard work is undone now, exiting the hairpin at turn 6. Grain Market Racing in, still not yet reaching the pit lane window, but they're doing their long stop now, aren't they? Yep. During the full course yellow. So do your minimum timed pit stop now. Don't do the driver change until later on, but you can do that then as quick as you like. Nothing in the regulations to say that you have to do your time stop and your driver change at the same time.
Just to clear of the gravel, he will need to execute a bit of a, well, hopefully not three-point turn, but he's facing the direction of traffic at the moment. Of course, yellow will remain until that car is underway and the intervention vehicle is in a place of safety.
So the two leaders on the road remain Francois Kerman in the orange and black car, and nicely done, John Corbett.
Pretty good lock on one of those.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Put a meter on it, London taxi. Excellent.
Very nearly. Not a lot of space for your luggage, though.
No. There's a big shelf on the back.
True. Just get some cable ties. Anyway, number 3 then heading through turns 1, 3 and 4. And then that tricky left-hander at turn 5, which is the area that tends to get muckier through the course of the race because there's some gravel, there's some dirt from the edge of the circuit that's often brought on, particularly an issue in the longer race today.
I'm trying to work out, by the way, how has Fabien Laverne passed 2 cars? So what happened there? Fabien Laverne is ahead of John Hartshorn. It's Claudio Schiavone, I would give him. He was right there with him just as we were coming into that period, but I wonder whether or not people were checking up.
It's possible.
Or somebody else was involved in one of those incidents. And
yes, has obviously made one pit stop, but that was to repair the damage.
Absolutely.
John Schauman's been in, we reported that at the time, and Laverne will have gained the place on him as a result of that. But how's he got ahead of 2 GT3 cars?
But as I say, Schiavone, he was within 2 seconds the last time I looked, but he was 12 seconds back before we got into the full course yellow. Not that long before we got in the full course yellow behind John Hartshorn. That can only be, unless Fabian's made a mistake and there's an issue to come, it can only be that John Hartshorn's had a problem out the circuit somewhere.
Yeah, and it's not a case of John helping Fabien out because they're from different squads. Lucich Racing are a Swiss team and essentially run by Spirit of Race / AF Corsa. Kessel Racing, a completely different outfit, so not the case of John Hartshorn slowing down to allow Fabien Laverne by. So maybe just a moment for John.
But the net result for the moment, at least, is that the Lucich Racing car is up in the 6th position. And next target now is going to be EB Motors Porsche. That is under full course yellow, some 14 seconds up the road.
There's the Mercedes of Dexter Muller and Yannick Mettler. Now, it's not out of the equation for this team to finish 3rd in the standings. A fight between Beechdene AMR, the Christoph Ulrich Maurizio Mediani car, which currently runs in 3rd position. We're going back to green now. That Spirit of Race car is on 59 points, but at the moment outscoring the Aston Martin. And intriguingly, if it were to finish like this in GT3, we would have equal point scorers for 3rd place. And I'm not sure how they're going to be split. Well, it'll be on count back. I don't think either car has won a race so far, so you're looking at 2nd, 3rd and 4th places through the course of the season, if things finish that way. But Yannick Mettler and Dexter Muller's Mercedes not out of it yet either for 3rd in the championship. An hour and 25 to go, and now everybody's getting back up to speed. We get a real-time gap, or we will, looking at Alex Capardo, by the way, in the pit lane. A real-time gap between 2nd and 3rd, RLRM Sport and Lannon Racing after that minor error from Mikey Benham.
Minor but significant in terms of the time it's cost him. Well, we'll wait till we see them through this next timing beam, but I think it's about 12-13 seconds. But that's closed Tony Wells in to under 6 seconds back from Mikey Benham.
Cool Racing cars getting side by side again, and that is it's a move for position between the car with the green door mirrors and the Motorsport 98 car. John Schauman will be going a lap down on this battle because he made a pit stop, and the car was in the pits for 1 minute and 19 seconds as the team sorted out some kind of problem. Schaumann and Maurice Smith were absolutely side by side through 15 and 16 there.
14 seconds is the gap, second and third. Rob Weldon back to Tony Wells, set to Mike Benham. Tony Wells is under 5 seconds back though, and was quicker last time around, so that's one to watch, the battle of the third, as we are, what, something between 20 and 30 minutes away from seeing Colin Wells aboard the number 2 car, Duncan Tappy aboard the number 25 car, and the Lion Racing team are going to want to stay out of close contention trouble. They're going to want to get to the front of this race and do what they can to secure the points to bring home this title.
John Corbett in the number 9 car also not involved in the battle for position, but he could have an impact on the order of Maurice Smith and Motorsport 98. So John recovering from his spin, which brought the full course yellow out, and now right on the tail of Eric de Donker, who is in 10th position in that red and black car.
As we watch this quartet, tell you that Fabien Laverne has caught Paolo Venerossi. He's just 2 seconds back now. His pace compared to the midfield cars significantly better, even with that hobbled Ferrari. So we'll keep an eye on that and start to calculate points here too if this gets much more significance. He's got much more of a gap for the next target after the UB Motors Porsche. That would be the Aston Martin. That's 2 LMP3 cars ahead of him.
The real problem for Laverne and Mikkelmack is that they've got to finish ahead of the number 8 Kessel Racing Ferrari.
The issue here is, what I guess I'm calling here, Johnny, is if there were a problem for the 8, the reality is the Lusitz Racing car has still got to score a significant number of points here.
Yeah.
So making up the positions will be significant only if Kessel Racing stumble.
I mean, let's just assume that Laverne could get to 3rd position at this stage.
That would be enough if Kessel stopped.
Or indeed finish 7th or 8th, because that would work as far as Laverne is concerned. The 51 Ferrari is now in the kitty litter, and this is Christoph Ulrich, which will give Fabien Laverne a position as a result of this. So the Spirit of Race car off the road, and again the question mark, do we need full course yellow or a safety car to recover this?
Well, here's the point, is had that been the 8 car, we'd be talking a very different story.
Yes.
And it could very easily be at some point in this race, because it's going to get frenetic.
Yeah, I agree.
Lots and lots of things up for grabs here.
Every reason to stick with this for the duration.
He's gone way off there, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. Now, was that contact?
Oh, no. He'd been around before he got there. That was a big spin.
So Christoph Ulrich finishing 2nd in the championship last year, hoping to finish 3rd in the championship this year. That will not have helped matters. And all of a sudden, there'll be smiles at Beechdene AMR and indeed at SPS Automotive Performance, because they're better placed now than that 51 Ferrari.
Well, Laverne is already through, by the way, on Venerossi and now on Christoph Ulrich. So he goes from 6th to 4th in a lap.
That's how quickly it can change, isn't
absolutely. The gap now that he's looking for to the Beechdene AMR car. It's a full course yellow, by the way, for recovery of that Ferrari, which should not take too long. Just looking at the actual gap. So Andrew Howard has Jack Wolf and Mark Crader behind him. 26. It's 41 seconds. But at the rate at which he's catching them, he's going to make a big inroad. He's managed to back it out himself, actually. Well done, sir.
So no outside assistance required. Now just needs to locate first gear, which Christoph has done, and he can rejoin. Just caught the back end of that spin. Not sure how it started, but couldn't see another car anywhere close to him on the track. So I think it is an error on Christoph Ulrich's part. And thankfully a very deep and wide gravel trap down there. He only needed to use the first bit of it.
Well, that will mean trying to get whatever intervention had been scrambled back to safety. And then I'm sure we'll be back to green flag racing.
So that car heads down the main straight. Behind them some dueling Ligiers, but as we're into another caution, a chance to catch up with the driver. Mikkelmack's the teammate of Fabien Laverne, now with Charlie.
Well, Mikkel, a hugely disappointing start to your race.
Yeah, we're very, very unlucky here in the start again. So, yeah, we don't know. With this full course yellow, it doesn't help us anyway. So we'll keep fighting and then we see where we end up.
The team did a great job getting the car back out quickly. Does the car appear to be running okay?
Yeah, the car runs perfect. We see the lap times as Laverne is doing is very, very good. And the mechanic was just amazing in the pit stop. So thank you to all the guys.
Is there anything you can do strategy-wise from here?
No, maybe we can hope for a safety car.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
I think that is the only way that the situation changes, unless Sergio Pianazzola makes a mistake. We haven't seen a great deal of them so far this year. I think it's even less likely to happen when Giacomo Puccini takes over. But then you've also got other cars, plenty of them, hammering around this Algarve International Circuit. And if there's an incident right in front of the 8 that it can't avoid and end a championship, it just has a way of, I don't know, delivering something that we don't expect.
Absolutely. Mikkel Mack, by the way, if it's a name you think's familiar and you're a follower of the European Le Mans Series, you're right. Previous GT champion for Formula Racing back in the day, and I think I'm right, is reigning champion from last year's International GT Open with Luzic Racing. So Mikkel, when he gets in that car, will be very rapid. Others will be too in other cars. There is a lot of entertainment to come here in the remaining 78 minutes of this season.
You are right, by the way, Graham. I didn't expect otherwise, frankly. Alessandro Pierguidi and Mikkel Mack, champions for the International GT Open in 2018. Well, certainly shared some of those drives with Pierguidi. I wouldn't be surprised if he did the full season. Pierguidi races in the ELMS for the same team and is now an ELMS champion for 2019, sealing that with a round to spare at Spa-Francorchamps.
So under a minute till we go back to green flag racing. It will end at the top of this minute, so it is 35 seconds now.
Careful not to do any overlapping, because even overlapping counts as overtaking. But assuming your speed limiter is correct at 80 kilometers per hour, roughly 50 miles per hour, then all should be fine. And the idea of this is to maintain the gaps between the cars going into the full course caution, to make sure we've still got a fair fight coming out of it. And that will end then in 5 seconds. We'll get going with Francois Kerman on lap 23. Rob Weldon really not very far away. Green flag does wave now, as indicated by the speed being picked up by Talkanitsa and by the car behind Wolfgang Triller.
Minor point, but I think under full course yellow, Mikey Benham has lost seconds in every sector. There's something potentially about the full course yellow restrictor or limiter on that car. I wonder whether or not he's having to do that manually.
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah. Oh, a little bit wide for Triller, kicks up the dust. Thinks about a move, but surely once bitten, twice shy regarding turn 15. The gap's there, and then it's not there as the car in front you're trying to overtake whips across to the natural racing line. So out of turn 16, the final corner. Very crowded house here at turn 6 as well, with the race leader and Rob Weldon right behind. So wow. Kerman, Weldon, first and second.
Now I think that's probably because Kerman's been stuck behind the traffic that's now behind this pair, isn't it? And Weldon, for
one sector, was scored the leader, yeah, so by 41 thousandths of a second.
Wow, so that must have been Kerman held up until we went back to green. And Rob Weldon's now got his dander up.
He certainly has. So that probably Weldon being called as being in front of Kerman, not at the start-finish line, but at the end of sector 1, into the braking area at turn 6.
Oh, and it's round, the leader's spun.
Turn 14, disaster strikes for Francois Kerman. Where's Benham? It's because all that time that Benham's been losing, we think in the full course yellow, could be hugely gained here. The white car with the red nose then we're looking out for now for Lannon Racing, because that is the championship rival of Francois Kerman, who has looped it at turn 14 under pressure from a guy who's not even been in the championship all year, Rob Weldon.
Where in the background are the cars going to emerge? He's ahead of him. He's ahead of Kerman. And that was Kerman running wide, losing grip to the rear and just looping it around and taking time to actually come back.
So over the start-finish line will go Mikey Benham, and for the first time he is ahead of Francois Kerman and now outscoring him. Points for second place 18, points for third position 15 at the moment. Then that is enough, because of course Benham and Tappy came here with the championship lead. 6 points it stood at the start of the race, and if it were to end like this, then the championship would go to Lannon Racing after, again, a rock-solid performance all year for Francois Kerman.
Watch again, he goes wide here, back end of the car.
And Rob Weldon says bye-bye, because all that pressure he's put on him for the last few corners has finally told. And Kerman now with a big job on his hands. We've got Laurence Heur to come next in the DKR engineering car, the orange and black machine. Duncan Tappy in the Benham car. You've got to think, if Benham can bring that car into the pit stop at half distance ahead of the number 3, I can't see Duncan Tappy being overtaken.
Well, it's, you know, this race so far, we're not even halfway, and we've had real dramas in both classes. There's 2 LMP3 cars, including the leader, go either side of a backmarking GT car. Actually, no, it wasn't a backmarking GT car, was it? It was what happened here. This was where the lead changed.
Yeah, where Rob Weldon actually got ahead, because Kerman a little indecisive through the traffic.
Okay, that was what it was. So that was at the restarts.
And when Weldon was too wide coming out of 6, so that gave the lead back again to Kerman. So briefly, Brit was ahead of the Frenchman at the end of the first sector, because he judged the traffic slightly better, going to the right of a Ferrari rather than to the left, which is the direction that Kerman went. But then Kerman, a tighter and better exit out of turn 6, but then made the error at the top of the hill at 14. So here's the order. Rob Weldon leads for RLR M Sport, his first venture into the Michelin Le Mans Cup. I think he may be back for more in 2020 if this goes well. Second position, Mikey Benham, 17 seconds adrift now of Weldon, but Kerman right underneath the rear wing of that car.
Triller finally makes it past Talcanizza again, I think for the 3rd time. So can he keep it on the island this time? I'd love to be able to call an overtake that says it's Chiller, it's Triller.
Well, just a bit of ground to make up now for the German driver, on Frenchman on Adrian Schiller, who drives for Graf. 5.2 seconds. Triller's certainly got the speed, just needs a bit more consistency. And Alexander Talcanizza staying with him for the time being, but if you think you've seen this order of car before, you certainly have.
Multiple times, in fact.
Yes.
So RLM Sports 14 car, 18 seconds to good down from Rob Weldon after the dramas that afflicted the then race leader Francois Kerman. Weldon putting excellent pressure on at the restart, and it paid. There he is, crossing the line, a debutant in the Michelin Le Mans Cup, and still got Alex Capaldi here to come. A man delighted to see back in this paddock this weekend. One off for this pair. This is not a pairing that I believe is going to be back next season. Simply a matter of, I guess, RLR being able to show, look, this is what our cars can do. Why not? Mike Benham, meanwhile, 19 seconds back. He will now be in, well, consolidation mode here. He'll want to hand the car over in good order to Duncan Tappy. Francois Kerman, though, is still right with Benham. That is not done.
Turning right now towards the tricky turn 9, which has a slight kink at 8, just approaching it, but there are so many corners around this 4.6 kilometre circuit that require a good exit speed, because you're either heading uphill next or down a long straight, and therefore it will determine your optimum speed along those crucial bits of the circuit. They all link together for a good lap time.
Teams getting ready. This is, by the way, this is the battle for second. Tony Wells is not far back here, by the way, and is catching this pair, just under 2.5 seconds back from the pair.
Benham to the outside of John Hartshorn, and Kerman thought about going at the inside of John there, but the gap was closing.
Wells just appearing in the back of the screen there, and we'll be with Hartshorn in just a moment or two. You'll see him in the back of this shot there.
Yeah.
That's second, third, fourth.
The next Ferrari to overtake will be Christoph Ulrich after that spin into the turn 16 gravel, which brought out the second full course yellow. Mikey Benham, so far so good, and Kerman can't get by Ulrich through 16. Ulrich needed to take the corner and had to work his way to the racing line at some point. But just sliced across the nose of Francois Kerman, who had to check up, but that was perfectly legitimate from the Ferrari driver's perspective.
This is shaping up, by the way, to be one heck of a second half of this race. Some very quick guys to come in these this lead group. Alex Kapadia, Duncan Tappy, the 1-2.
Adrian Schiller from 5th position has come into the pits, and again, too early at this stage. We've only had 51 minutes, and Schiller clearly with an issue for Graf. There's a little bit of a lock up there for the United Autosports car, but that's not on the lead lap. Why is Adrian Schiller now into the pits from 4th place? So you're not going to be able to call that Schiller-Triller battle, because Wolfgang Triller has benefited from a pit stop and moves up to 5th place now.
Indeed. Keeping an eye as we watch this real thriller, and it really is, in LMP3, what's going on in the GT class. Fabien Laverne is biting time out of the Aston Martin. Aston is about to be caught, I think, by the 30 CD Sport car for 17th position. But 2 cars behind, it's the time that matters here to Fabien Laverne, and he's picking up, well, he's doing all he can do, taking something like 4 seconds a lap out of Andrew Howard.
Quite a bit of smoke. We didn't see the pit stop for Adrian Schiller, but I was able to observe it on another screen, and it looked like there was a fair bit of smoke from the brakes for Adrian Schiller's car. So I just wonder whether those brakes are, yeah, maybe, and overheating. There are several parts of this circuit that require heavy braking, and not too much gap between those braking points for the brakes to recover and cool down. So wait and see. It was 56 seconds, that pit stop, and Adrian Schiller staying at the wheel. It's the front left corner where a lot of that smoke is coming from. It might be exhaust smoke, actually. We've caught that from another angle now. Anyway, they sent the car back out again. Here's the battle for the championship, but also for 2nd place on the road. And Kerman thinks about a dive up the inside of Mikey Benham at turn 6, but Benham just about has that covered. But what about the speed that they exit the corner? Because Kerman might be able to fashion the inside line here at the kink at turn 7, but after 7 we're turning right, which will favour Benham. 2 right-handers, in fact. And Lannon Racing's car stays ahead of DKR Engineering. This is pivotal regarding the championship, though. At the moment, with 2nd place and 18 points, Benham and Tappy would finish on 109, compared to Kerman and Hoare on 100 points.
Great, hard, clean racing between these two at the moment. Very respectful. They know what's up for grabs here. Neither of these cars can afford a non-finish. Oh, that's exactly the way that people are feeling about this one right now. Yes.
There is a scenario, of course, where these 2 cars, these 2 teams, could finish on the same amount of points, by the way. But that would require Kerman to get ahead at Mikey Benham, and then for Benham to fall to 4th place. I think we'll explain that scenario if indeed it emerges, but at the moment Lannon are doing all that they need to do, running ahead of Francois Kerman, but that will be a concern for those at Lannon, that the DKR Engineering car in certain parts of the lap is a little bit quicker.
Absolutely.
So
every single piece of traffic here is a challenge, isn't it? And these are the moments that could define a championship. And this time, Mikey Benham does the better job with the SPS AMG. Practicing for Triller.
Yeah, that's right. Even the mechanics doing a little bit of a workout to make sure that they are limbered up in readiness for the pit stop. The pit stop window is effectively open now because we have reached the 55-minute marker. So those drivers in for the first stint have done their required time. Nothing to stop them doing a little bit more. Just make sure that driver 2 that goes in also does 55 minutes.
And the quicker men, not that any of these guys aren't quick, they're all quick, but quicker men going to be ready on pit lane here. In comes a 74 Cool Racing car. That's some little way down. That's in 8th position. by Smith. A stumble there that I spot for Francois Kerman. I think I did.
Maybe a little bit further back on this lap. Not able to pressurise through the middle portion of the lap as he did on the previous circuit.
He has Laurence Heur on pit lane waiting for him. I've no doubt Duncan Tappy's ready, willing and able.
Race leaders in, by the way. Rob Weldon has pitted, but what about the next two? Lannon are going to come in, and almost to respond to that, there's a big queue in the pit lane as well. So let's hope that that doesn't hamper the progress of Lannon or indeed of DKR Engineering. They should all be hitting the pit lane speed limiter at the same point as they trundle their way at frustratingly low speeds, but of course it's all done for safety down the pit lane. And make sure at this point that you don't forget where your garage and your pit bay is. Hopefully the Lollipop Man is doing a good enough job to ensure that the drivers involved, they're virtually next door to each other as well, so this is easy to keep tabs on. So Lannon racing closer by about 2 bays to the pit lane entry road.
Oh, and with the Aston Martin between the two.
Wow.
It's a tight exit.
So the Aston Martin is now, if anything, going to hamper the exit of Lannon Racing. DKR have a clearer run, don't they, with no cars in front of them. This is the race leader currently. Rob Weldon bringing the number 14 RLR M Sport Ligier in to hand over to Alex Capadia. Fuel going in at DKR Engineering. Here's the 23 car from United Autosports. That was Rob Hodes bringing that in. But Rob Weldon already back onto all 4 Michelin tyres, waiting for the clock to tick down.
Alex Capadia back in. The clock does tick down. Keep an eye on the times as they emerge from here. Let's hope nobody just coughs ahead of the clock here, because that would not be the way to finish this.
Alex waved back into a healthy lead. We have understandably been concentrating on the fight for second position then. Who's going to be away first? Will it be Laurence Heur? Will it be Duncan Tappy? Heur has the better exit. Remember, the Aston Martin arrived between the two LMP3s, partway through their stop.
Watch for the car behind the Aston Martin there. He gets away. Oh, he stalled it! He stalled it!
Here goes the Lannon Racing car then, and Duncan Tappy, who will gain this, well, keep the spot effectively. And that could have been a big gain for Laurence Heur, but he miscued the start of the car and had to have several goes at that, and now runs a little bit wide as well, so loses not a position, but nevertheless allows one car to get ahead of him, the CD Sport car. So a disastrous start to the stint. The other DKR Engineering car is almost alongside as well.
Which currently leads, by the way, because they've not pitted. So Wolfgang Triller, after his travails, at least has led this race. AT Racing stayed out as well, as did the GT leader, 3rd overall, by the way, at the moment, the 8.
And Laurence Heur is going to allow the 5-car by there. So Heur struggling here to get the tyre temperature up, and just struggling to find his rhythm as well, whereas Duncan Tappy is up the road and gone to a certain extent. Is this the race today, the championship this year, now being decided?
No. It doesn't look comfortable in that car. It's a nose change to the number 4 racing car on pit lane.
That's the car that John Schaumann brought in pretty early on with an issue.
Great cooling going on the 39 car.
Yeah, and I was just trying to work out when that car was brought in by Adrian Schiller, whether it was brakes overheating or an exhaust problem on the left bank.
In comes Sergio Pianazzola. Is this a race-winning stint? So race-winning and a championship-winning stint from him?
Pianazzola, because so many cars pitted ahead of him, coming in from 3rd place overall.
Absolutely.
Only behind Wolfgang Triller and Alexander Taukanitzer on the road. Giacomo Puccini strapping himself in, making sure that the radio is connected. Sparks flying from the wheel gun on the number 50 car as it locates, by the way. And a little bit of indecision, it looked like, from the guy in the front left corner there, whether to change tyres or not. Having a quick word then with Giacomo Puccini. That's a very useful pit timer there.
Someone coming down, I like that.
Yes.
Big numbers, we like that.
Just make them big.
That's the kind of phone you buy for your granny. That's what you do.
Not a reflection on the eyesight of Sergio Pianazzola or Giacomo Puccini, by the way, but under pressure, you know, and this is high stakes when you're in the pit stop and making sure you don't breach that pit stop time. You want it as simple and as plain as possible.
Right, DKR and the AT Racing car pit from first and second. That's the end of the major pit cycle for starters. That will put Alex Capardia out in the lead, something like 22 seconds ahead of Duncan Tappy, who has a second and a half on Lawrence Hur. Jack Wolf is a further 2.7 seconds back. Colin Noble, 8.7 seconds. So he's lost some time there in that pit stop cycle. The Nielsen Racing team.
The fight for 4th and 5th now on the road, but still for the championship. Duncan Tappy against Laurence Hur, and Hur, I reckon, has now got to grips with this car. Conditions a little different from yesterday. It's not as warm as it was, and also just a little bit more moisture in the air. Humidity's up because of extra cloud cover. Whether that's had a difference for the behaviour of the car, just an opening lap was slightly unusual for Laurence Hur.
In and out goes the Kessel Racing car. This is the Luzic Racing car, or most of it, in for its second stop, but its routine stop. Team need to be clean here.
Giacomo Piccini in the blue Ferrari with the white zebra stripes, then going once more down into turns 1 and 3 for the net GT3 leader.
Yeah. At the moment, by the way, Luzic Racing up into second in class, but that's because they were late to stop.
This is Laurence Hur stalling the car and allowing Duncan Tappy then to nip by in the fast lane.
Could have got away there and taken that lead, but did not.
Although the way that Hur approached or completed that first lap, I think Tappy would have been past him anyway, because it was like the car was on ice for the first few corners. Strange. So whether they were using brand new Michelin tyres rather than scrubbed ones, so you've got the cleaning agent to get rid of initially, whereas Duncan Tappy just was able to get into the groove from the first corner. Thumbs up from Sergio Pianazzola. Warm work, of course, despite it being pretty early in the morning here. The temperature is still pretty decent, and we think the risk of rain for the ELMS race later on today has now gone. Certainly nothing like the strong wind that was here 12 months ago for the equivalent meeting in 2018. The 50 car has now been taken over by Ollie Hancock, who is hustling and haranguing Andrea Piccini now in the number 60 car. So this is the scrap for 7th and 8th in GT3.
Timing screens are lighting up, and naturally the fastest lap of the race goes not to on the lead group, but it's Victor Blushen in the number 74 Cool Racing car, 7th position, a 1:41.545, but that's blitzed by Duncan Tappy seconds later, chasing Alex Capardia. Duncan in second place in the Lanham Racing car, a 1:40.657. That is over a second quicker than the leader managed last time around. This is game on.
GT3s, first, second and third are 16th, 18th and 19th overall, with Giacomo Piccini actually just picking off a couple of LMP3s because they've come into the pits, in fact. So we've got Piccini first, Yannick Mettler second for SPS Automotive. Shouldn't overlook the good race that they're having. And Ross Gunn in the Beechdean AMR Aston Martin is currently third.
In GT, it's a healthy lead still for Giacomo Piccini in the Kessel Racing car. He's got an advantage over Yannick Mettler. Not a huge advantage, it should be said, but an advantage over Yannick Mettler. The one thing I'd add here is, if, for whatever reason, the Kessel Racing car doesn't finish this race, Fabien Laverne's charge, and with Mikkel Mack now aboard the car, does mean they're now in a points position to win the championship, should the Kessel Racing not win, not finish the race.
Finish the race. That's true. And really the key was to finish ahead of the number 8 car. Their lead was big enough to stay ahead, I think, of the third place fight. But yes, it's not ideal for Luzic Racing. It's getting a little bit better, but they're now hoping for effectively their rivals to not finish the race for whatever reason. Mechanical drama's not unusual, even though it's a 2-hour race.
Massive fight on the clock here between the second and third place car. These are the championship contenders. Duncan Tappy, fastest lap last time around, bettered by a 10th this time around by Lawrence Herr, chasing in third. 1.6 seconds is the gap. These are going to be really tense moments. And who do you want to talk to in a tense moment? I think what you want is the man who was in the wheel of the 25 car. Down with Charlie in pit lane, it's Mikey Benham.
Yeah, I'm catching up with Mikey down here at Lannan. Well, that was an eventful stint, wasn't it, in this crucial final race?
Yeah, no, it's quite hard work for us, gents, that, because we had a couple of full course yellows towards the end, but Portimão is quite a physical track, not quite as bad as Barcelona, but yeah, to be going for hour long, 40 minutes, as fast as we can, try not to make mistakes, and tyres going off, fuel loads changing. Yeah, it was hard work. It was hard work.
Now, of course, we're fighting for that championship. You're looking in a good spot at the moment. What would it mean to you?
Are we in a good spot? I don't know, honestly. Yeah, it would mean a great deal if we... I'd be just delighted for the team if we can get it home from here. Obviously, there's a long way to go yet, but that would be the most important thing, to see the smiles on the guys' faces. That would be great.
Now, is it easier being in the car or watching at this stage?
I don't know. I guess it's easier for me because I can watch Dunk and he's quite good at this, whereas I can imagine it's painful for him, thinking probably watching it through spread fingers the whole time. But I don't know. I'm glad that the car's in Dunk's hands now. Couldn't be in better hands as far as we're concerned.
Best of luck.
Thank you very much.
So that's Michael Benham chatting to Charlie George then, and willing Duncan Tappy on during this stint. At the moment they are doing enough. He asked the question to Charlie, are we doing enough? I don't know. Well, just as long as the Sector 25 car finishes ahead of the number 3, they came here with a championship lead, so that would be extended and would be fine. But Laurence Herr is battling hard. He's only 1 seconds behind, and actually on the previous lap managed to do an absolute best Sector 1 time.
They are trading tenths is what's happening here. It's a 10th quicker 2 laps ago for Tappy, a 10th quicker last lap round from Laurence Herr, 10th quicker from Tappy this time around. It is no quarter given. This thing has got last corner dramas written all over it.
Let's just concentrate on this Ferrari battle. It might be for the last position effectively in GT3, or to not be last, but Ollie Hancock is giving it everything to try and get ahead of Andrea Pacini, and I wouldn't be surprised if both these cars are making ground on Maurizio Mediani in the Spirit of Race Ferrari. Alessandro Baccani as well, being a bronze, will be being caught by these two Ferraris.
Not quite making time on Mediani. He actually put in the fastest GT lap of the race a little earlier in this session, but all three are indeed catching the Porsche at this stage. Lucic Racing, meanwhile, Mikkel Mack, 4th in class at the moment. He needs to just consolidate that position. He's something like 40 seconds back now from Ross Gunn, who obviously is a rather quicker moving target than Andrew Howard was in that car. It is all now about whether or not the number 8 car can come home with a hatful of points to secure that championship for Kessel Racing. But what a fight from Fabien Laverne. Excellent stuff after that misfortune on the first lap of the race.
Rejoining Victor Bloujon is now somewhere around 10th position. Did you say it was a drive-through?
It was a drive-through for overtaking under full course yellow, I think.
Yeah, so drive-through takes 28 seconds, roughly, when you're heading down the pit lane at a much reduced speed, of course. 1.5 seconds, the gap now between Duncan Tappy and Laurence Herr. There it was, in fact, coming out of turn 6. So Alex Capadia out front by just over 13 seconds. Tappy and Herr not separated by much at all.
And catching him, they were 20 seconds back at the start of this stint. The traded 10th, by the way, goes back the way of Laurence Herr this time around. So they've gained 2 tenths on each other, lost 2 tenths to each other in the last 4 laps. Order restored, but the general trend is they're catching the leader.
Hancock still trying to find a way by Andrea Pacini. Feels like it might be quite a long wait for a mistake from the Italian, but this traffic might have something to do with it as well. A fair bit of bunching up of traffic behind the scrap for 7th and 8th in GT3 as 3 LMP3s ease their way to the left-hand side of the track to try and nip by. Was there contact there?
There was contact there, the CD Sport car, I think it was.
On the rear of Ollie Hancock's Ferrari, number 50. Well, a chance briefly to draw our breath and look back on what this race has delivered so far. So much, including on the opening lap. So they fanned out to an incredible margin as the lights went out. 6 abreast, something like that. Nice wide circuit here at Portimão, and every single inch of it was used. The Luxembourgish team of racing experience one side, but it was neck and neck for Wolfgang Triller and Mikey Benham briefly. Then through came Rob Weldon in the white, orange and black car, and Weldon very nearly up to and did snatch second place at turn 4. So he forced his way through and past the Lannon racing car. But look to the midfield and the next corner, the left-hander, because cars will go left, right and centre. One was Rob Hodes going into the gravel, taking the racing experience car with him. But the crucial incident in GT3 was Fabien Laverne's Ferrari being tagged from the rear by one of the Cool Racing LMP3 cars. That immediately punctured the rear left Michelin and did significant damage to the diffuser and the rear left corner of the bodywork. There was also contact in the early stages for Wolfgang Triller after an attempted move on Tony Wells, which didn't come off. Nicolas Mellin battling with Mark Crader. They were side by side heading down the hill and into turn 1, with Mellin bagging the place, nipping by the Grain Market racing car. And then John Corbett had a mistake, dropping his car into the gravel trap. That car's now being driven by James Winslow, by the way, and the number 9 required recovery, so a full course yellow for that. Also an FCY for Christoph Ulrich's car in the gravel trap at turn 16. Christoph did an incredibly good job to reverse that car from the gravel trap without the assistance of a towing vehicle, but despite that, the yellow flags had already been shown, so a second caution period. And then at the restart, Rob Weldon briefly got the lead from, at the time, Laurence Heur's teammate. So that was the change around which briefly, this was only for a sector, gave the race lead to RLRM Sport, but it went back again after then a spin for Francois Kerman at turn 14. Kerman looping the car at the top of the hill without any contact at all. Rob Weldon therefore came in from the race lead. This was an exciting bit of the race as the scrappers in the championship pitted on the same lap. They had an Aston Martin between them as well, with Alex Kapadia rejoining in the car that was started by Rob Weldon, but Laurence Heur stalled the car, and that gave advantage back to Lannon Racing, with Duncan Tappy taking over. Tappy exiting the pit lane, Kerman handing over to Laurence Heur, and that is the order we currently run, with Kapadia out front, Tappy in second and currently on course for the championship in 2019, and Laurence Heur in third, and the gap though is only 0.4 of a second now.
And also beginning to get up to speed, by the way, Colin Noble starting to edge into the advantage of Tappy and Heur in their pursuit of the leader. So it's looking like it might well be 4 cars in this lead group before we get to the end of this race. Quick times coming through. Bit of traffic though getting in the way here, and that has given a little bit of an edge to Duncan Tappy. 0.4 a second last time through. There's another spin for the number 5 car, this time in the hands of Kenneth Heyer.
So Kenneth Heyer with a lot of experience in GT3s. Was there some contact coming out of turn 6? No, all on Kenneth's own, in fact. Clipped
the curb to the inside, and I think a little bit too ready on the throttle there. And well, not quite around it went, but recovered and back on track. That car at that point was running in 6th position. It's now lost that position to Dino Lenardi aboard the Motorsport 98 car.
Again, Kenneth, another driver getting more and more used to how an LMP3 behaves. It's got some mechanical grip, but much of its downforce is reliant on you going at speed and that invisible hand pushing the car down, courtesy of the airflow. If you don't have that in the slower speed corners, it's actually pretty easy to loop one of these machines. Big heavy GT cars, different characteristic entirely. And a recovering Kenneth Heyer is now under pressure for position from David Hauser. So Hauser for racing experience, right on the tail now of the second DKR engineering machine. Kenneth Heyer very wide on the exit of 16, but Hauser pretty much followed him. And David getting a good run this time then on the German driver, and should make the pass. They'll begin the descent, which is pretty rapid, into turn 1, and through he goes. So that is 7th position.
Teed that up for about half a mile ago, didn't he? Good move from David Hauser. That is the position gone.
45 minutes left on the clock. How much more twists and turns are we going to have in this race? Because the fight in the championship is right there. Lannan versus DKR Engineering.
Still Tappy holding off Lance Hurd about 1.3 seconds. They are being caught, not by a huge amount, but half a second last time around from Colin Noble. That gap is down to 13.5 seconds. The top 4 covered by 20 seconds. Sorry, 28 seconds, misread that timing screen. But, still Ollie Hancock nibbling away at the back of the number 60 Kessel Racing car. He's enjoying this fight, Ollie, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he'd love it to be for the lead, ideally. It's actually for 7th position, but they've just got to be careful they're not slowing one another up in battling here, because I think that if they work together, there is a chance of reeling in certainly Baccani. I take the point about Maurizio Mediani, because Mediani's speed is pretty good, and that gap that was 13 seconds is now just down to 12 after several more laps.
Also, by the way, in the GT class, the lead gap is 6.1 seconds. That is Yannick Meckler with Giacomo Piccini. He is being matched, is Piccini, more or less 10th for 10th by both Meckler and indeed by Ross Gunnar, who's only a further 4 seconds behind. So the top 10 are separated by top 3 rather, separated by 10 seconds. It won't take much of a stumble for that to be nose to tail between any of those 3.
And at the moment, if SBS Automotive Performance can finish 2nd in this race, they would finish 4th in the championship. They're not scoring enough points yet to get ahead of the Aston Martin, as long as the Beechdean car finishes 3rd.
The very last thing that Kessel Racing will want at this point is getting into a toe-to-toe battle with another car.
Yeah.
And particularly another car that really, really, really wants to win a race. And there are 2 cars behind him that want to do exactly that.
Yeah, that's true. And 3rd position wouldn't be a disaster for Piccini and Pianezzola. So even if they were happy to allow the Mercedes and the Aston Martin by, it's not, you know, the sparkling way to win a championship. But you still get enough points to do it, because Lusick Racing had such a disaster at the start of their race. Still on course for 4th place points, 71, with Mikkel Mack now at the wheel.
Lawrence Hurd, by the way, has pulled back that 2nd deficit to Duncan Tappy and is now back within half a second of 2nd place.
They're heading now through the very fast left-hander at turn 10. Double right-hander at the top of the hill, 11 and 12. Just 11 slightly more open, though, than the tricky 12, which then plummets you down through 13 and up the other side to 14, along the little ledge then into the corner that's so easy to misread, because the car in front has the door wide open and then nips to the racing line. Here's Ollie Hancock trying to move around the outside. I get the feeling that's not the first time he's tried that at turn 1, but Hancock still can't get in front of Andrea Piccini.
Well, if you can't race for the lead, race. And they're clearly doing that. And I think you'll find that Ollie Hancock post-race will tell you he's thoroughly enjoying these moments.
39 thousandths of a second between those 2 cars as they started this lap. It was a lot less than that, turning right at the first corner.
LMP3 traffic now for the battling pair. And the battling pair for the championship, of course. Mikey Benham swapping notes with one of the Algarve Pro guys. We're operating out of the Algarve Pro ELMS pits here. The Michelin Le Mans Cup cars based in the rear of the paddock that come forward. Oh, the touch! 2 touches, 3 touches. What was all that about? That was Mikey, that was Duncan Tappy trying to protect the corner.
I don't know whether Tappy was far enough across the road, though.
No, neither do I. Was there too much of a gap?
There was still a gap.
Oh, there's another hit! And another! Oh dear, what was all that about? Duncan Tappy, what have you just done?
Well, there's the reaction down in the pit lane, and there's huge damage now to the front and to the rear. So the front of the Lannan car to the rear of the DKR Engineering car. It could be a scenario where neither car finishes and they end on the points that they had coming here this weekend. But that's at least a rear right that needs changing on the DKR Engineering car.
That was the 2nd incident. So there's hits from both. Hit to the rear from Tappy on the number 3 car, then a hit to the side. Well, 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 utter drama. It came earlier than I was expecting it.
Tappy went for a move, which was, you know, trying to throw Laurence Hoare, the dummy.
He's got to pit.
Making it look like he, well, of course, but yeah, that's quite obvious, but making it look like Tappy was going to go to the left, and then at the very last minute, jinking to the right in a sort of Formula Ford style overtake, but just didn't have the clearance. Both will be in the pit lane. Remember, they are virtually next door neighbours in the pit lane as well. So will there be exchanges before and after the cars have arrived and then been sent? This is high drama in LMP3.
It's what is the damage? Is we know how tricky. I think that as that legality panel gone, and we know they're tricky on these cars. It could be just a nose for London Racing.
Headlight hanging out, looking very dishevelled indeed. The nose will be changed. That may be, as Graham says, all that needs doing. These well-rehearsed scenarios, when you do them at the end of days, you know, on non-race days, easy done. But when you're in the heat of battle, the DKR car is gone already.
This is the first in the inset. This is the first incident. That was. I'm not sure there was a gap there to be taken. You know. I'm not sure there was a gap there to be taken. He had to go off track to hit the side of the car.
Or was he being forced off track?
Well,
I don't think he was going to make the corner.
I'll tell you right now, race control are not be impressed with this.
No,
in any way, shape or form, and quite correctly so. That was bad tempo on part of both drivers.
There is a bare carbon nose going on to Duncan Tappy's car, by the way, but as all this is being done, the DKR engineering car is heading away into the distance. Remember, that has lost places as well, although, well, we're waiting for it to go through the first split to give it its official position.
I'd like to see the rear of that car and tight on the right. There is no legality panel on that car.
That's right, which is the little cheese wedged shape carbon fibre box, effectively. I'm told called a bullet when you're looking to reorder one, and it carries a tail light, and the legality panel is just the engine side of that. But if neither are present, crucially the tail light section, then you will be called in to address that. Unsurprisingly, it says incident involving 25 and 3 under investigation. I think that involves about 3 or 4 incidents.
At least 3 or 4. Meanwhile, by the way, Alex Capardi, of course, is the big winner here, because he's now got a near 30-second gap to the new second place man, which is Colin Noble. So Colin Noble profits massively from that issue too. Laurence Hoare came out in 3rd position. I don't think he's going to keep that.
And yeah, that is officially his running spot at the moment. I thought it was a bit too ambitious actually to get the car in and out. Most impressive. All they did was change a rear right tyre therefore, but bear in mind there is bodywork missing from the number 3 car, and it could well be pinged for that.
So that was the second incident. That was Duncan Tappy. Now, I wonder if Duncan is going to tell us that he was brake tested there.
That's possible.
He made the move. He didn't make the move to hit the car. He made the move to go for the apex.
Yeah, as I say, in a classic Formula 4, Formula 3 type move, he lulled Francois Kerman, rather Laurence Hoare, into a suggestion that he was going to go down the left-hand side to overtake, and then at the very last minute darted to the right. Didn't quite, though, have the clearance for the nose. Now, that might be a misjudgment on Duncan's part, but as Graham suggests, it might have been a bit of early braking from Laurence Hoare.
It'd be good again at some point when we've got a quiet moment. Yeah, like we're going to get that in the Michelin Le Mans Cup. To see that whole sequence again, the 2 corners where we had multiple contacts between the 2 cars.
Yeah.
But either way, I think we're going to have some hot heads post-race here. Whatever happens, I cannot believe that number 3 car will not be called in for further attention to the rear.
Yes, and because it is now running, well, we think in breach of the regulations because it needs to have those cheese wedge shaped carbon fibre blocks in position, and one of them is quite clearly missing on the rear right corner.
I think the problem they've got is it's the bodywork that's damaged is where the mounting point is for that.
Well, it's always really difficult if you've got one dangling by the cable that powers the tail light or completely off. It's so tough to actually reattach one of those in race. So let's wait and see what the decision is. First of all, I think the decision on the incident will be called. This, of course, I mean, regardless of what happens to the number 3 car, it doesn't help the situation for Lannan Racing. They, I think, had reached a point where, right, we've got to get this nose on correctly. We've lost a load of time now. Let's just make sure the job is done properly.
Ross Gunn, by the way, is catching the SBS car. There he is, ahead of, on track at least, ahead of the delayed number 3 car, which has rejoined in 3rd position, by the way. This is the battle for 2nd in GT now. He's under 2 seconds back from Yannick Mettler. Lannan, meanwhile, lost stacks more time, back in 16th position now. That was a 2 minutes and 45 seconds stop. A minute and 47 seconds longer on pit lane. This is the 2nd incident. That was so difficult to see what happened from that angle. It was clearly he was going for the apex.
Yeah.
Did he misjudge it?
Michael Benham showing his frustration and now walking away from the screens back into the Algarve Pro Racing garage. Like to see the first incident again, because that's really where it all kicked off. I thought, well, Tappy had clearly moved across to defend the line. I'm not sure he'd moved across far enough. But
the key to it is going to be, where did the impact happen? Where was the car? Was there ever a point where that car had space, fully on track, to make an attempt at an overtake before the apex?
The other thing is, if there hadn't been contact before the corner, was Hur even going to make the bend? Because I think the car would have just continued straight and essentially cleaned Duncan Tappy out that way. So it was a somewhat robust and ambitious manoeuvre anyway. And then it turned out there was contact before they even turned into the left-hander at turn 6. Anyway, all this will be looked at over and over again by the officials. And let's hope for a decision somewhere before the end of the race, which is 33 minutes away. The team manager of Lannan Racing now being summoned to race control, presumably to offer their side of the argument.
That'll be Graham Johnson from Lannan Racing.
Heading out of turn 16, more squabbling LMP3s, one of which in a United Autosports car. Got the 55, I think that is behind. So it'll be Matt Bell up against Michele Rugolo.
In the lead battle, by the way, Colin Noble is taking time out of Alex Capardi, but my guess is at this stage, with just over half an hour gone, yet to go rather, Alex is attempting to drive as conservatively quickly as he can to win this race.
Rugolo thought about a move at the inside into turn 4, but the gap was closed by Matt Bell. What about the Italian's run down this short straight between turns 5 and 6? Again, no opportunity to slither his way up the inside of the aero paint liveried United Autosports car. Top 3 in GT3, still occupying 13th, 14th and 15th places overall. Giacomo Piccini 7 seconds in front of Yannick Mettler, but the fight really on for 2nd and 3rd in the race. That wouldn't change the championship positions, even if the Beech Dean Aston Martin were able to get ahead of the Mercedes, actually outscoring in the championship the Mercedes already. But that would further cement a good position. So here's the battle, Mercedes versus Aston Martin, two very different GT cars, although both front-engined.
Both of AMG turbo engines, in fact. So Ross Gunn has been reeling in that advantage. He's now got to deal with the fact he's got one of the cool racing cars. The number 4 car is directly behind him on the road. That's not the position. But Ross, having closed the gap, can he now find a way by into 2nd place? These two, by the way, just 6 seconds back from the leader. Not that far back. And if Ross has taken time out of the leader as well, there is time here, if he can get by the AMG, to even think about maybe a win for this race.
More side-by-side action as Alessandro Baccani overtaken by Andrea Piccini. So this is the Ferrari duo who've been catching the Porsche for about the last 20 minutes or so. And now Piccini is by. Ollie Hancock not able to get ahead of Andrea Piccini so far, but will have an opportunity to overtake at least one GT3 car in the form of the Ebby Motors Porsche.
Yeah, and that looks like that might be on the cards reasonably quickly. Bit of a flash of the lights from Ollie Hancock. Baccani certainly will know he's there. Goes to the inside, makes the move, neat and tidy.
And Hancock's priority there was not to lose too much time on Piccini. Should be able to make that up again. Andrea Piccini, I don't think is quite as quick as Ollie Hancock, but what Piccini can do is put his car in the right places to make sure Hancock's not able to slip by.
Wily old fox.
Sergio Pianazzola just getting a quick rub down as well.
Ross Gunn looking racy now, and he's now looking for a way by this AMG. He's definitely got the quicker car underneath him right now, but quick enough to find a way by safely. We might be about to find out.
No way by at turn 6, and just running a little bit too deep. Well, too deep, I say, into the corner. That might have been a tactic to get a better exit, but it's pretty healthy exit speed, but not able to get alongside the Mercedes through there. What about into turn 9? And then you've got the kink at 10 to come next. Some dust being kicked up into the face of Ross Gunn from the Mercedes, the SPS entry.
Seems to have better initial traction off the corners, the Aston Martin, and he's certainly able to bite the apex a little better at the moment than the AMG. So it looks to me like he's just looking for his moment. Of course, he's got another LMP3 car. This is the Motorsport 98 car. That car, by the way, 4th overall right now with Dino Lunardi. Good performance from them. Not challenging in terms of pace the top 3 just now. No sign yet for any decision from race control on the multiple incidents involving the 25 and the 3 car. 3 car still sits in 3rd. Still doing lap times as quick as anybody. Duncan Tappy, meanwhile, is, what's his lap times like? Again, it's race leading pace, but he's down in 16th place. He will be, by the way, the next man to encounter the battling 2nd and 3rd place cars in GT.
50 laps done.
There he goes. Is this where Ross Gunn can make it? He's looking, not there.
And no, but he again has got a very good run onto this straight between 5 and 6. And
I think he's going to look up the inside this time.
Burning a hole in the rear bumper of the Mercedes. He's alongside and now should be able to outposition Merck. There is the celebration down at Beechdean AMR. Andrew Howard sitting on the railing on the pit wall, and Ross Gunn is now ahead of Yannick Mettler for 2nd place.
That's cost him a couple of seconds in the chase for the lead. It's about 8.5 seconds the lead gap to the Kessel Racing car. 27 minutes to go. In terms of Mikael Mack, by the way, he's solidly in 4th place. He can really do no more. He's now got to wait and see whether or not Kessel can finish this race. That is out of his control now. Ross Gunn, though, is going to be setting off in pursuit of the Ferrari as through comes Duncan Tappy to overtake the 54 car. That is for position, by the way. It's Tappy up to 15th. That long stop for the replacement nose.
Also, now that the Mercedes has fallen back to 3rd position, likely to be 5th place in the standings by the end of the year. Could have been 4th if it had stayed ahead of the Aston Martin, but I don't think anybody was going to hold back Ross Gunn, the mood that he's in. Been trying to get by for the last few laps, and there's the reaction down at Beechdean AMR. Meanwhile, other people not interested in the race at all, concentrated on the Rugby World Cup in Japan. I'm sure there are 1 or 2 Welshmen up and down the pit lane, and indeed South Africans. 26 minutes to go, and heading through the left-hander at turn 5. The Aston Martin running a touch wide, but still carrying good speed. That will allow, I think, Duncan Tappy, no, not quite to get through. Now running with the black nose, remember, because that is the replacement segment.
Ross will let him go here if he possibly can. He's not going to compromise his own speed.
So, yeah, Duncan down in actually 15th place because of that long pit stop. I don't think we ever did report the time, but it was 2 minutes and 45 seconds to do the repair work on the Lannon racing car. I just wonder whether Lannon would have been a bit frustrated with how long it took to change that nose. Not being on the spot, wasn't able to tell actually whether some of the clips were damaged because as a result of the contact itself. So it may have been rather more difficult to take off than at the end of the day, for instance, on a clean racing car. Amazing that DKR Engineering were able to turn that number 3 car around as quickly as they did, with a change of tyre to the rear, maybe just pulling some of the bodywork out. but it's still running without the legality panel and the tail light on the right-hand side.
That may be the race controller talking to the team about that.
Yeah.
There is a system available for race control to talk to the teams.
Well, they've certainly spoken to Lannon, because there was a message about getting Graham Johnston into the office of Eduardo Freitas.
Oh, that was a tap. That was a tap, and that's off for the.
That's the
race leader. That is the race leader in GT.
Giacomo Puccini. So, as we said, these little incidents can creep up on one or two teams when they're not expecting them. And Giacomo Puccini leading the race. There's a pit stop under investigation as well now for car 71, by the way,
that's
which
Luzic.
is the other championship rival to Kessel Racing.
Even just a quick run through the edge of the gravel trap, that could have done a tie. All sorts could happen there. Meantime, Ross Gunn, by the way, has taken huge advantage from that. He's under 5 seconds back from the lead now.
Got away with the contact, it would appear, on the right-hand side as well, which could easily have caused a puncture on either of the right side tyres, and then a high-speed run through the stones. Sometimes punctures as a result of going through gravel traps don't emerge till much, much later on.
Keep an eye on that car. As that, you can see Ross Gunn there is, well, it's just the straight between those two corners, just the shoot down the hill between the two GT runners here. Watch this again, up the inside goes the Cool Racing car, bounces off the curbs, hits the right rear corner of, very lucky that wasn't a much, much bigger accident for the Ferrari.
Very lucky that the rear right didn't instantly go down as well, because of course then Giacomo Puccini would have had to do a full lap on 3 inflated tyres.
Yep.
So far, all is fine, but...
That's the gap. You can see the Aston Martin, top of the screen. Lannon Racing, by the way, is again, this is for position. This is now the battle for 13th, 14th, 15th position.
So it wouldn't change even if the Aston Martin was able to get into the lead as far as the championship is concerned, although Kessel Racing will be hoping for a race victory, no doubt about it. But the Aston Martin, having come to this final meeting of the year in 3rd position, wanting to solidify that and, of course, finish the year with a race win. A little bit of a lock up there for Ross Gunn, so there's evidence of how hard he is pushing currently, trying to eat away at the gap that remains.
It's not that drama, has it, in any regard here? Meantime, by the way, for the race lead overall, Alex Capaldi is still 23 seconds to the good. In clear air, Colin Noble is able to take chunks of time out of that, but I don't think it's going to be enough.
Best results so far this year for Andrew Howard and Ross Gunn. A 2nd place finish at Spa-Francorchamps last month. They've had a couple of 4th places as well, but the top step of the podium has so far eluded them, and this is one of their best chances to get there. Bearing in mind, of course, that in this scenario, Giacomo Puccini is not going to want to force a fight. I would imagine if it gets a bit tasty, he'll allow the Aston Martin by and concede those extra 7 points.
Well, this new Aston Martin, the new shape Vantage, has seen success all over the place in its new iterations, GT4, GT3 and of course GTE. This is the only GT3 version of the car racing in ACO rules racing, but it's seen success everywhere else. British GT in class in SRO rules racing, of course, internationally. Can it add a race win in the Michelin Le Mans Cup in its 1st season as well? That would be the icing. Well, let's put it this way, it'd be the flake in the cone, wouldn't it, for Beach Team?
Nicely done. Yeah, every win so far has come from the Ferrari 488, whether that be at Paul Ricard, Monza, either of the 2 races at the Road to Le Mans event. One 55-minute race held on the Thursday of Le Mans week, one on the Saturday morning. There was virtually, well, nearly contact there between Rob Bell and Michele Rugolo. Rugolo had been trying to force that opportunity for the last probably 10-15 laps.
That was a change of position for the top 10. So Rugolo into 10th position. And we've got most of the remaining field of LMP3s in one corner there. 5 cars battling for in 3 different battles, I think.
Yes, so the scrap for 10th has just found the back of Alex Mortimer in the Grain Market Racing car, which is actually 18th. So Mortimer is about to be lapped by the black and blue car of Michele Rugolo, and Matt Bell trying to tail him with the tail ends of those cars wagging crazily out of turn 6.
But Alex is in the battle with James Winslow. There's another bullet, or is it the same bullet?
Did it just get detached from the car?
Yes, it did.
Goes flying there from the Grain Market car. So there was contact from Michele Rugolo on Alex Mortimer. Great spot from our directors and the cameraman down there at turn 4. And that now lies not quite in the middle of the track, but is a thought in Eduardo Freitas' mind, I'm sure, about how to deal with that. Debris on track. Side by side again. It's at the Keo Racing machine as well, 43 alongside the 55 of Rugolo. Yes.
Yeah, that's 11th place, by the way. That's in the battle for 10th with Rugolo and Bell.
So Johan Jokinen driving the Keo Racing car currently.
So those 3 cars within a second.
Started by Alain Costa, the Monegasque, and now the Danish driver Jokinen taking the Ligier over at the pit stop. So Norma out front, although not on the same lap as the 3 Ligiers behind, and the Graf car in the train as well.
Big drama.
Part of that battle.
It's 3 minutes stop and go penalty for Lannon Racing for causing a collision at turn 6 and turn 9. So that's been called against Duncan Tappy for both incidents.
As I said, the incident at turn 6 I would have liked to have seen again, but I had the feeling that Duncan had maybe edged that car too far over to the left, and the contact at turn 9 I think was always going to go the way of Tappy, because one car into the rear of another is 99 times out of 100 the fault of the car behind. So it's a 3-minute stop and go penalty for a car that was already way down, and that more or less hands another championship to DKR Engineering, as long of course as they can finish the race.
That was the rear view of that incident.
So down pit road comes Duncan Tappy now to serve this 3-minute stop and go penalty, which is going to feel like an eternity. He's already had an eternity waiting for the nose, of course, to be changed, and a rather forlorn guy on the lollipop holds it out rather half-heartedly to make sure that Duncan stops on his marks.
The pit lane adjudicator on site. This is the GT battle. Meanwhile, Ross Gunn has caught the number 8 car. Now, what do you do here if you're the Ferrari man? I'd hate to say it, but I'd let him go.
Yeah, me too.
It's the championship at stake here.
Absolutely right.
It's the Le Mans place at stake here. And why risk it at this point? He is not at this stage going to be caught by the AMG.
It would also mean back-to-back titles for Kessel Racing, really making an impact on ACO rules racing in recent years. And as I say, you don't want to force the issue, risk some contact with the Aston Martin and risk a non-finish as well, with the Lucid Racing Ferrari running in 4th place currently. Got to get this car to the line, and ideally somewhere in the top 3 ahead of your championship rivals. At the same time, I don't think Giacomo Puccini's going to make it necessarily easy for Ross Gunn. But if Ross manages to get an overlap anywhere, I don't think it will be hardly fought.
Ross has just basically got to put his competitor here under pressure, and that's, I think, when the decision will be taken. Risk against advantage. So he knows what the game is. Very experienced racer, Ross Gunn. Young man has made his way up through the Aston Martin ranks. A lot of the development on this GT3 car, and he's getting closer and closer to the rear deck of that Ferrari.
Of course, the other thing is that Kessel are looking for 3 wins in a row, having taken victories at Barcelona and Spa-Francorchamps.
Meantime, Duncan Tappy, by the way, has still got a further minute to serve on this stop and go penalty. What a horrible way to finish a championship.
True enough, they were very lucky at Spa-Francorchamps, I think, to score maximum points because of the breach of regulations from all three cars out front. But then again,
they were very unlucky at Barcelona to be involved in an accident that wasn't their fault.
Yeah, and that didn't happen even in the race. That happened very early on in the week in one of the early test sessions, practice sessions. I will say about Spa, though, that they were the first legal car on the road, so that was legitimately a race win. There was a spin there for the Kia racing car and the Grain Market machine.
Followed off, wasn't it, by the Grain Market racing car?
Not sure that there was any contact before either of those spins or off-track moments.
Just unsighted, I suspect.
Johan Jokinen, and actually very easy to, well, try and avoid the car. You go where it is right now, but it was diminishing returns there for Alex Mortimer. More or less guided him towards the gravel trap. He was able to check up in time. 3 minutes now done. There's also a black and white warning flag to car 55 for causing the contact to Alex Mortimer's car, which ripped one of the legality panels from the rear of that number 20 machine and left it lying in the track. So that's just a yellow card. You don't have to come in to serve a penalty. Meanwhile, don't forget about Alex Kapadia and indeed Rob Weldon, who still lead the race. And always a last race victory, if you're not involved in the championship, has the risk of being overshadowed. We'll try and not do that, though, for Alex Kapadia, who's making a one-off return to the championship, and Rob Weldon, who I'm sure we will see quite a bit more of.
A controlled run as well from Aurelart, from both drivers. 22, 23 seconds to the good now, after the dramas that were initially behind them. And he is doing a good job. It's a very Alex Kapadia-like drive, this. He knows what gap he's got. He's been managing that gap since he got into the car and since Colin Noble moved forward into second position. 22 seconds it is, 23 seconds, and it's been like that, up and down by a half a second here, a half a second there, for some time. Ross Gunn, meanwhile, he can sniff it, can't he? He can smell the potential for champagne here. And you do get the impression second is not going to be good enough here. They're not going to win the championship. They are going to want to put the Kessel car under pressure to say, we are coming through, we're going to do it fairly, but the risk at this point is yours. That's the smart move.
So at the moment, Ross Gunn having to make the opportunity. Alex Kapadia is about to whip by over his right shoulder. So maybe Alex can create the gap
20
here.
seconds to full course yellow.
And we're going to go full course yellow because of another incident out on track.
That might be debris.
It could be debris. Did Johan Jokinen get out of the gravel trap at turn 16 is the other question I had. I think he probably did.
4, 3, 2, 1, full course yellow, full course yellow.
And that must be to retrieve the bullet that sits on the racing line, or just off it at turn 4. So from the rear of the Grain Market racing car, that little bit of carbon fibre, the box shape, has to be recovered.
It's a chunk of carbon fibre, and also the shape. If you think of the shape, you hit that on the wedge end of it.
Yeah.
There's not going to be a lot of steering going on.
No, you would be skating towards the scenery very quickly indeed. And there's a bit more debris actually further up the track. That's another bullet. So that could well be the one from the DKR car, potentially. Anyway, 2 of them now on track, and brave marshals will be heading towards the scene there, judging, I'm sure, the gaps in the traffic. These cars still circulating at lower speed, but it is still 80 kilometres per hour or 50 miles per hour. So better to work out where the larger gaps are so that the bodywork can be recovered as safely as possible. High-risk job being a marshal, and we're grateful to all the local marshals here at the Algarve International Circuit once again. Without this group of people, brave men and women, then we couldn't go motor racing. So thanks to all involved. Hope you're enjoying your weekend once again with the Michelin Le Mans Cup and the European Le Mans Series. There is the bullet going flying from the rear of the Grain Market racing car and coming to rest upside down. Easy retrieval, and that probably will be returned to the team, if not taken away for a bit of a souvenir. 10.5 minutes to go. Is there one more twist or turn in this narrative? Championship very much swinging the way of DKR Engineering and Francois Kerman and Laurence Heur. We've got a few more minutes to go before we get going again.
And luckily for Ross Gunn, it means there's a car between him and his target.
So, into the final 10 minutes, but a chance to catch up with Francois Kerman from DKR Engineering.
Yeah, just catching up with Francois on the pit wall. It's been just a crazy, eventful race. How's it been from your side?
Yeah, it was very crazy, but I prefer to speak about my stint and not about the accident. My stint was not too bad, I just make one mistake, and now we are just waiting for the 10 last minutes, and we will see after that.
You're in a fantastic position to take the 3rd championship for DKR. What would that mean for the team?
Yeah, it can be awesome, but we have to wait 10 minutes. The race can be long, so I prefer to wait, and we will see each other in 10 minutes.
Thank you.
So yeah, thinking back to 2017 when Alex Torrell and Jean Gloria took victory for DKR Engineering. Last year it was the story of Jens Pettersson and Leonard Hugenboom for DKR, and it's been the same livery pretty much for the car as well in each season so far. This could be 3 in a row for the Luxembourgish outfit. We have seen DKR in the ELMS at certain points. I think that was last year.
We did. Yep.
But not from memory in 2019. But again, that will be a natural step to head towards LMP3, because if you win LMP3 in the European Le Mans Series, that's then an automatic entry to the Le Mans 24 Hours, something you don't get for winning in the Michelin Le Mans Cup, at least in LMP3.
So, skip full of carbon fibre and other bits being retrieved by our brave marshals. Eight and a half minutes to go under full course yellow. Positions still to be determined here, including, of course, the GT win. And the 2 cars we can see there in shot, the Ferrari, separated by the overall race winner from car that is targeting him as soon as we go back to green, Ross Gunn in the Beechdene AMR car. Not long before we're back to green flag racing, I'm sure, as one of the intervention vehicles returns to its place of safety.
Colin Noble and Tony Wells still running, by the way, in 2nd position, so they would move on to 79 points. That's not enough to leapfrog either Benham or Tappy. They were too far
11,
away.
At 10:54 we go green. At 10:54 we go green.
It's just under a minute from now.
But what it will do for Colin Noble and Tony Wells is pretty much cement 3rd place in the championship.
45 seconds to end full course yellow.
They've been contenders throughout the year.
Yeah, they have.
They've had some bad luck through it, as many of the other teams have.
I do remember, disappointed faces from the 2 of them a few times this
30
year.
seconds to end full course yellow.
I don't think they've necessarily got the result that their drives have deserved. But that's the way of motorsport sometimes. You need some luck on your side.
20 seconds to end full course yellow. Under 20 seconds to end full course yellow.
I think the countdown is so long here from Eduardo Freitas because he realises, we've got
10,
just 5
9,
minutes left pretty
8,
much, or 6 and a bit
7,
minutes left of the season.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Full course yellow has ended. Full course yellow has ended.
So you can see very vividly there, the teams are getting their cue from their own engineers, not directly from Eduardo Freitas. It's for the teams to relay that information.
Yeah.
Kessel Racing straight on the gas. And no opportunity there for Ross Gunn to take any advantage, and he's got himself stuck with a bunch of LMP3s between him and where he'd like to be.
And the one between him and
the leader.
GT3 class leader is a certain Alex Capardia, who leads the race overall. So that's just what I mean. As soon as Alex...
Big slide there from Alex.
That was full fine, all under control. If Alex can get by the Ferrari and the Aston is close enough, there may be the opportunity to take advantage of that. But the Aston's just lost a little bit of ground because the LMP3 is so good through the twisty bits. Change of position potentially behind with Talkanitsa Jr. battling with the number 11. That was a change for, or at least an exchange for 5th position. David Hauser eager to get by in the Racing Experience car up against AT Racing. Ross Gunn still just about, now he battered the curbs there, and that really did imbalance the car briefly and has lost him a little bit of ground on the Ferrari number 8. Now Capardi is by Piccini, So there is open road between Ross Gunn and Giacomo Piccini.
For the moment, but of course the further two LMP3s behind. So Ross has got the trickier task of the two men here. He's trying to manage the gap to the, or rather close the gap to the leader ahead, but he's also going to keep an eye on his mirrors. Where are those pesky LMP3s? They're battling between themselves as well. So Ross Gunn, the gap is a second. We have just under 5 minutes to go of this race. Can Beechdean AMR's 99 Aston Martin come home with a first win of the season in the Michelin Le Mans Cup? Before the full course yellow, I'd have put a bet on it, but actually right now looks to me as if Giacomo Piccini feels as if he's got a bit of breathing space. Oh, and that always did look a bit of a lunge, didn't it? That was the 11 car. Managed it though. I think the other car may well have gone off in avoidance there.
Interesting way to overtake for David Hauser. No, not quite. Taukanitsa Jr. rejoins and is ahead of the Luxembourgish driver. But yeah, backing it into turn one, which was interesting. All risk.
Watch this.
Just 4 minutes to go of the season, and some fun still to be had.
Yeah, bit of a hold my beer moment there.
That wouldn't have worked on a hill climb that David Hauser is so competitive on. But they are narrow roads that normally David and Gary compete on in their high-powered single-seaters. Out of turn 9 goes the fight for the GT3 race win in Portimão. And as I say, this won't change the championship positions. Championship being lined up by Kessel Racing, and a second-place finish for the Aston Martin at the very least will cement third spot in the championship table.
On the way to the overall championship, though, looks very much as if it's going to be the number 3 DKR Engineering, Norma. We've got one further point to make here before we finally call that. We'll call it as we see it on screen. That car's going to go through post-race technical inspection, and it doesn't have a rear bullet.
That's right. It's definitely missing something patently obvious on the rear right corner. And why does that matter, I hear you ask? Well, it's part of the regulations that, those two sections of bodywork just beneath the rear wing, left rear and right rear, need to be in place, is my understanding. So we'll wait to read the technical assessment at the end of the race. 2 minutes and 40 seconds to go. Race leader just heading out of turn 4 now. So we'll have the completion of this lap and one more, making it a 65-lap race, and there is still a 22.6 second gap for Capadia. Talk about consistency. Back to Colin Noble for Nielsen Racing.
Yep, Colin Noble, good stint from him, excellent stint from Alex Capadia. On RM Sport will be rightly delighted with this performance. Nielsen Racing will be pleased too. They're at the top of the show here. DKR, though, will be utterly delighted that the outcome of what could have been a race-ending incident has seen them still in a podium position and in a championship-winning position too.
Yeah, despite, well, 2 separate incidents and probably 3 or 4 bits of contact between the Lannon racing car of Duncan Tappy and Lawrence Rohr's car. All of that was assessed and both labelled as Duncan Tappy's error.
I'm wondering whether or not Ross Gunn has not got the grip he had earlier in this stint behind him. He does not seem able to close that gap in the way they did before.
And the car's just squirming and sliding a little bit more out of the corners as well, which will be wearing the Michelin tyre more readily. And the car that looks more on rails right now is the Ferrari.
Well, if he's going to push, it's going to have to be now, because we've got under a minute and a half to go. This will be the final lap.
For Alex Capadia, yes.
He's just ahead of this pair.
That's right. So, as I suspected, a 65-lap race, heading now through turns 1 and 3, the race leaders. And Capadia is not able to make that much ground, actually, on the battling GT3 cars behind. So fast are they going. And Alexander Taukanitsa Jr. not able to find a way by the Aston Martin either, which keeps him more under pressure from David Hauser for that top 5 position. So Hauser eager for a top 5 finish. It may not be a podium, but that's the next best thing.
Final lap is confirmed. Is there going to be, there's a bit of bumping and boring behind with the 2 LMP3 cars. But is there going to be a last-moment drama here for anybody? It doesn't look like it at the moment.
I just don't think there are enough corners left for Ross Gunn now to fashion an opportunity. That drop back behind cars for the full course yellow, and couldn't switch its tyres on, it seemed, the Aston Martin, quite as quickly as the Ferrari did in front. There, down the hill goes Alex Kapadia then for the first win of the year for RLR M Sport, and credit due to both Alex but also Rob Weldon for the opening stint.
Yep, cracking stuff from the 14 winners, of course, in the European Le Mans Series in LMP3 last season. Championship winners, but coming down the hill into the final turn, and this is going to be a win for the 14 car, for RRM Sports, for Rob Weldon, and for the man behind the wheel right now, Alex Kapadia.
So a one-off return for RLR M Sport, and it is a victory. In the background, back-to-back titles for Giacomo Puccini and Sergio Pianezzola. The number 8 Kessel Racing Ferrari hangs on to the race lead. There is the celebration down with the Swiss squad. They, of course, will turn their attentions to the ELMS a little bit later on today, but that is job number 1 completed. Kessel Racing get the automatic entry, the automatic invitation for Le Mans 2020, just exactly as they did at this circuit 12 months ago. Still a little bit of a question mark over this car because of the missing bodywork on the rear for the DKR Engineering Norma, Laurence Heur and Francois Kerman, but after a significant fight between this car and their title rivals, they came out the better. A punctured tyre needed to be changed, but the Lannon car given a 3-minute stop-and-go penalty. And this is 3 titles back-to-back for the Luxembourgish squad, DKR Engineering, 2017, 2018, and now 2019, going the way of DKR and to Francois Kerman and Laurence Heur, who now get the checkered flag. Congratulations to them, finishing third in the race, and Colin Noble and Tony Wells, by the way, finished second in today's race and therefore third in the LMP3 Championship.
Well, a race and a season that didn't lack for drama at any point, either on track or post-race more than once. But another very entertaining 2 hours of Michelin Le Mans Cup action. And what an inspired decision it was to add the LMP3 cars to this championship. They've not looked back, have they?
We've enjoyed 3 years of that now, the 4th year of the GT3 element of the Michelin Le Mans Cup. And you couldn't speak too much about entries for next year, but numbers, I think, pretty healthy.
Pretty good.
I mean,
I think looking good. Remember, we will see the new LMP3 cars in this championship.
That's going to be a big draw.
Absolutely. I'm already hearing that 3 of the 4 chassis have found customers in the Michelin Le Mans Cup.
Yeah.
And we've got multiple teams and drivers testing 3 of the 4 cars. Of course, for the next 2 or 3 days.
One of the huge highlights of the season is the trip to Circuit de la Sarthe every June for the Road to Le Mans event, which forms rounds 3 and 4, if you like, of the championship, making it a 7-race season. And you get, therefore, the chance to put your teeth into a 2-hour race every month or so, and then the 2 or 1-hour races on the support bill of the 24 hours of Le Mans. So very attractive indeed, particularly to non-pro drivers, because of the responsibility carried as a bronze rated driver. They've got to do all the qualifying, they've got to do at least half the race as well. There's the reaction down at DKR Engineering, a 3rd title in a row. Now finally Francois Kerman can allow a smile to emerge across his face. He was pretty hesitant earlier on, chatting to Charlie George, didn't want to say too much too early. Now the outpouring of emotion can begin.
So a delighted Alex Kapadia. He's taken time out for family and for business, but good to see him back. And boy, as he puts a marker down for his form.
And what a way to win a championship, to hang on to the race win. Alex Kapadia a little bit out of breath, but all smiles down there with Rob Weldon, by the way. Rob on the left of shot. And Giacomo Puccini will now embrace Sergio Pianezzola, because for the 2nd year running, they have managed to take the driver's title in the Michelin Le Mans Cup for Kessel Racing. Right then, let's catch a word with Alex Kapadia and possibly Rob Weldon, the race winners today for RLR.
Well, Alex, you've taken a year out. Great to see you back. What a comeback to take the first win for RLR of the season.
That was like the dream way to come back into it. We got a phone call from RLR last week offering myself and Rob an opportunity to come out here and put on a good show, and absolute dream. Rob did an absolutely amazing first stint, brought the car in the lead, and my job was just to try and hold it back from the other guys, especially the Normers, who are really, really quick around here. But mega, really enjoyed it.
Well done.
Thank you.
So Rob Weldon just grinning to Alex's right-hand side there. He exactly right, cemented a brilliant base then for Alex Kapadia to measure the gap, and it stayed roughly 20 seconds throughout the stint.
Rob Weldon, what a hell of a bronze he is.
Absolutely
Absolutely
right.
amazing.
Well, yeah, I mean,
that
Lusick
got a little bit under the wire.
Lusick found a cracker in the form of Fabien Laverne, and RLR might be on the cusp of a very good bronze indeed for a lot of radical experience. But within ACO rules racing, not experienced at all. So, yeah, we'll see whether that gets reassessed over the winter period.
But lots of happy campers. There'll be one or two that aren't, and I'm sure I'll get the joyful task of speaking to them later.
Good luck with that. OK, Ferrari win, Kessel Racing win. It's another victory for Giacomo Piccini, who's now chatting to Charlie.
Well, guys, it took a cool head of this race, and you guys had that. It's your second championship. Congratulations.
Yeah, we are again. It was full of emotion, all the championship. I mean, I think Sergio did an amazing start. When I saw he was first, it was incredible. Even if Lavergne had a bad luck, I think that anyway today we could have won the race because the pace was amazing, the car was great. So thanks to everyone, thanks to Deborah for all the thought, to Claudio and all our team, because really was impressive. And thanks to my teammate, of course, who is every race faster.
Congratulations, guys. Enjoy celebrating.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah, the award ceremony takes place tonight in Portimão, and Sergio Pianizzolo and Giacomo Piccini will enjoy that, I'm sure, for the second year running, and they secure an automatic entry to the Le Mans 24 Hours for 2020.
There's something particularly joyful about a happy Italian.
There'll be a few, I'm sure, and indeed happy Swiss as well, being Kessel Racing and the Swiss outfit. So 2 hours ago, the final race of the year got underway for the Michelin Le Mans Cup. It exploded into life as two neatly arranged rows of cars just fanned out like crazy, and there was jostling of position as Wolfgang Triller in the green and black car for DKR Engineering went level with Mikey Benham in the red and white Lannon Racing entry, and then Rob Weldon sneaking up on the other side of Mikey Benham bagged second position, and that was the start of a very good run for RLR M Sport, eventually coming home as race winners. This was carnage at turn 6. A car in the gravel was Rob Hodes, the racing experience car running wide, but the huge story in GT3 on the opening lap, the massive damage to the rear left corner of the Lusick Racing Ferrari that required a puncture and for several bits of bodywork to be torn from the car. A clash between Wolfgang Triller and Tony Wells also early on in the piece, and John Corbett slithering off the track and into the gravel track required the first full course yellow, which tempered the field, but only briefly. There was another full course yellow for Christoph Ulrich's stranded Ferrari in the gravel trap at turn 16. Amazingly, he was able to reverse out of there unaided. Then the carnage continued between Francois Kerman and Rob Weldon. Not contact, but Rob Weldon somehow managed to sneak ahead at the end of the first sector, going the right side of a red Ferrari. And then the pressure from Rob Weldon told eventually on Francois Kerman, because there was an unforced error from the Frenchman spinning at turn 14. The reaction told all for DKR Engineering, and then the pit stops arrived 55 minutes into the race. The two championship protagonists arriving on pit road together. It would be a stall for Laurence Heur here, and that would give Duncan Tappy the advantage. Of course, the race leaders remained RLR M Sport at this point, with Rob Weldon handing over to Alex Kapadia. But this would just be the start of the drama regarding the championship battle. There was first of all some contact between Laurence Heur and Duncan Tappy at turn 6. Tappy giving Heur no space at all as they approached the corner, and then afterwards, as Tappy approached turn 9 to go through the switchback from left to right, more contact was made. The headlight torn from the 25 car, and the nose would need replacing. The 3 machine was able to just about squabble back to the pit lane as well, but with a puncture. And this was a frightening moment for all involved with Kessel Racing, as Giacomo Piccini, really easily leading the class, had a clash with the Cool Racing machine, which sent the Ferrari briefly into the gravel. Thankfully, no puncture was forthcoming. A first win of the year then for RLR M Sport, Alex Capardia and Rob Weldon. But behind them, the championship was decided in the favour of Kessel Racing, flashing the lights there with their Ferrari. And the DKR engineering squad winning a 3rd title in a row in the Michelin Le Mans Cup. So it's well done to DKR and to Kessel in 2019. And now the various teams of mechanics and engineers assemble at the base of the podium in readiness for the presentation. 65 laps completed, a first win of the year for British squad RLR M Sport, Rob Weldon and Alex Capardia.
And the first win of the year for Ligier in the Michelin Le Mans Cup, because the other 3 teams that have won, Lannon Racing, DKR Engineering, the champions, and a single win from the 39 Graf car, all with Norma machines.
Yeah, and that single win for Graf coming at Le Mans on the Thursday, so only half points available for the team on that occasion. So the second slate in that graphic then detailing that DKR Engineering finished 3rd on the road, and that gives them sufficient points to leapfrog Lannon Racing, who I think finished 25th overall and 17th in class. They get just half a point for that. But it is still enough for Michael Benham and Duncan Tappy to finish 2nd in the championship and above the Nielsen squad of Tony Wells and Colin Noble. Grid assembling already for the next support race, but 100 points for DKR Engineering. They finished therefore at 8.5 ahead of Lannon Racing. Nielsen Racing secure 3rd position with a 2nd place finish on the road, and it'll be the only other race winner of the year, Graf, finishing in 4th position. Looking further down the order for the number 14 car, I think I missed it actually, but that gets 25 points for race victory in the final race of the year. So that's the LMP3 Teams Championship. Podium is dressed and ready to receive drivers, and it'll be the LMP3 gang first of all. And indeed, first of all, the championship winners. The most celebrated 3rd place finish ever, perhaps, for Francois Kerman and Laurence Heur. And they will head to the far side of the podium then. And the 3rd step. 2nd position to Nielsen Racing. It'll be Colin Noble and Tony Wells. And the Teessider and the Scotsman from Edinburgh heading now towards the 2nd step of the podium, with a 3rd place in the championship as well. Handshakes all round, which is good to see, with the DKR team duo. And a first win then for Ligier, a first win for RLR M Sport in the Michelin Le Mans Cup. Alex Capardia and Rob Weldon heading towards the podium.
And next year's bronze driver between, by the look of things.
Yes. She might take some convincing, but give her a few seconds, and I'm sure this experience will be most enjoyable. But there's a team member there for RLR M Sport as well, doing a little tap dance in celebration, and then we will get to hear the national anthem of the winning team.
Please rise for the national anthem of Great Britain.
RLR M Sport take victory, and apologies. the full version of the Great British National Anthem there, and apologies for speaking over it briefly. So RLR M Sport are victors, but concentration obviously at the moment to DKR Engineering, to Francois Kerman and Laurence Heur, who have been very consistent, although that race really did present a test for them.
Irish Formula Ford legend Alan McGarity on the right, Nick Reynolds, the team principal of RLR M Sport, on the left there. They'll be very pleased indeed with that.
Third place trophies to the Frenchman and German then, but there'll be a bigger trophy later on tonight. Second place trophies to Tony Wells and to Colin Noble of Nielsen Racing. And a very smart trophy indeed for Rob and Alex to take home, together with the team as well. Will this tempt Alex Capadio back for a little bit more action in 2020? He's been a big miss this year.
He has. That looks like Capadio Jr. Very happy.
With the winners of this race.
And there's now champagne to be sprayed, of course, with 7 bottles about to be cracked open and the podium about to be made very greasy indeed. Will be reset just as soon as these lot have had their fun to welcome the GT3 podium in a moment or two. And we will, of course, see the champions on there. We won't see Lucich Racing, who competed with them throughout the season because they finished just off the podium in 4th spot. So full of action throughout, and that's the beauty of the Michelin Le Mans Cup, which it seems to be going from strength to strength. It remains to be seen the entry for next year, but surely a good year for LMP3 and GT3, both of which went down to the wire here in Portimão, can only do good things for the championship. And fingers crossed that's managed to drum up a bit more interest over the winter period. This championship really does offer something that no other one does, particularly in GT3, where so much responsibility is put onto the bronze drivers' shoulders, and of course a chance to get some LMP3 experience in readiness perhaps for a campaign in the Asian Le Mans Series, in the European Le Mans Series, which also includes the 2 races at the Road to Le Mans. We've heard from Francois Kerman a little bit earlier on. Now we must get a word with Laurence Heur, his teammate.
Well, guys, congratulations. You are the 2019 champions.
Yeah, I can't put it in words yet. It was really, I would say, to the line, even if we didn't fight to the line, but it was, at least for me, a real thriller.
That's certainly one word. Are you going to celebrate tonight?
Yeah, of course. For me, it's the first experience in MP3, so it's just awesome to win the championship. And thanks, Laurence. Well done.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, big smiles from those 2 gentlemen, and they take the championship after a significant decision process that needed to be done in race by the clerk of the course. But Laurence Heur, with a lot of supercar challenge experience, he ran in the Le Mans Cup last year as well for CD Sport, but as Francois Kerman says, his first year in the LMP3s for this year, so quite an achievement. Right, GT3s then are being welcomed to the podium. First of all, in 3rd position, it is the SPS Automotive squad of Yannick Mettler and Dexter Muller. Andrew Howard and Ross Gunn to the 2nd step of the podium, despite Ross's best effort to get ahead of the eventual winners. But here are Sergio Pianazzola, who punches the air, and Giacomo Puccini applauding behind, together with a representative from Kessel Racing. They will take to the top step of the podium, and it will be the national anthem of Switzerland we will hear, not only for today's race, but also for the 2019 championship.
To listen to the national anthem of Switzerland.
Once again, it's Giacomo Puccini and Sergio Pianazzola, and 2 wins, 2 titles for them back-to-back. Prior to that, Emanuele Busnelli and Fabio Babini. So we've had 3 years in a row we've had Italian drivers taking victory. Busnelli and Babini on that occasion in 17 was for an Italian squad though, EB Motors. This is very much for the Swiss outfit, Kessel Racing. Trophies held aloft then for Dexter Muller and Yannick Mettler. They might have been able to finish 4th in the championship. In the end, it's 5th by my calculations because they slipped behind Ross Gunn fairly late on. But nevertheless, a round of applause for SBS Automotive Performance. Trophies held high as well for Beechdene AMR, Andrew Howard and Ross Gunn. And the biggest round of applause there for Kessel as the champagne corks are popped and the end of a season is reached. It all came down to the wire and the very intense 2 hours we've just witnessed, Graham.
We have the dramas in GT, for the most part, happened right at the start of the race with the issues for Luzic Racing. The dramas in LMP3 were throughout, but then that's an astounding series of moments between the London Racing crew and DKR Engineering.
So let's try and remind you exactly what happened over the last 2 hours, because there was plenty of it. Everything got away relatively cleanly, although later on in the first lap it wouldn't be quite as formulaic. Cars though from the very far left-hand side white line to the right and fanning out to jostle for position into that natural bottleneck at turn number 1. Rob Weldon making strides, leaping ahead of Wolfgang Triller in the green and black car, and then Weldon squeezed up the inside of Michael Benham to take 2nd position as Rob Hodes skated off into the gravel, taking Nicolas Mellau with him, and then there was contact for the rear of the number 71 Ferrari run by Luzic Racing. That would pretty much swing the championship in the direction of Kessel Racing, and from that point on it was a recovery drive for Fabien Laverne. There was contact earlier on between Wolfgang Triller and Tony Wells, also a spin for John Corber which would leave him in the gravel and the wheels spinning like crazy, but he was going nowhere. A full course yellow, the only option to Eduardo Freitas. We had to do another caution for the 51 Ferrari being in the gravel as well. Christoph Ulrich did a very good job of stopping the car in time to make sure the rear right was still on hard standing. He was able to reverse out of the stones. Rob Weldon and Francois Kerman ran side by side in traffic, with Weldon in the white, orange and black car going the right-hand side of a Ferrari, Kerman to the left, and after all that pressure, Kerman made a mistake at turn 14. The car swapped ends on him, much to the devastation of DKR Engineering, peering at the screens, and he would rejoin eventually, but way down. Both cars for the championship pitting on the same lap and virtually next door to one another as Alex Capadia took charge of RLR M Sport. But the first thing that Laurence Heur did was stall the car, and that gave Duncan Tappy the advantage heading out into the race once again. Tappy in the white and red car, and the orange and black machine of Laurence Heur rejoining behind in what was a net 3rd position. They then got together, not only at turn 6, scrapping for the championship and battering over the sausage curb there, Laurence Heur, but later on, 3 corners later, Duncan Tappy going for an audacious overtake, tried to the left, then at the last minute swooping to the right, but he smacked the nose of the car on the rear of Laurence Heur's car, pinged for both of those incidents, Duncan Tappy, and had to come in to serve a time penalty of 3 minutes. They also needed to change the nose, of course. This was a scary old moment for the Kessel Racing Ferrari. Off onto the gravel after contact with the Cool Racing LMP3, and Giacomo Puccini did a very good job to recover that moment because he could have ended up deep in the gravel trap. A first win of the year for RLR M Sport. Congratulations to Alex Capadia and to Rob Weldon, his teammate. Just behind them, a championship once again for Kessel Racing for Sergio Pianazzola and Giacomo Puccini, and it was a win for the DKR Engineering squad in the championship. 3rd place on the road would be enough, and well done to Laurence Heur and to Francois Kerman, who finish the season neatly on 100 points. Duncan Tappy and Mikey Benham on 91.5. They only got half a point for a 17th place finish today. 79 points is enough for 3rd in the championship for Tony Wells and Colin Noble, ahead of Adrian Schiller and Nicolas Schatz. The other race winner this year, along with, of course, RLR M Sport now. Dino Lunardi and Eric Dodonka sneak into the top 5 for Motorsport 98. Kessel Racing, 130 points. They take the title from Luzic. 80 points is enough for third position for the Aston Martin squad. And we've got it all to do again a little bit later on today, Graham Goodwin, with the European Le Mans Series.
Absolutely. One position for the Le Mans 24 Hours decided for 2020. More to come later this afternoon. Please join us there. It's been an engaging Michelin Le Mans Cup season in 2019. More to come for the ELMS.
12:30 start. We're on air at 10 past 12 for the ELMS. For the moment, from Graham Goodwin and from Johnny Palmer, bye-bye for now.